from Nyandarua is still the chair of the committee these days that changed every other day. Mr. Speaker, if he is still the chair and he has done a very good job previously, we hope that they will look into this matter very critically. Alongside the salient points raised by Governor Sang, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of management of the environment. The mowing of trees almost everywhere, even on very dangerous slopes. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, we have enough agrarian scientists in this country. We have enough know-how to map out and tell the country areas that are prone to possible landslides and mudslides, so that people can be moved, because under the Constitution, the government has a residual responsibility to make sure that the safety of the people of this country can never be compromised. Where areas are designated by geologists as possible landslide-prone areas, the government has a duty to make sure that people are moved from those areas and settled in other areas. Equally and more important, Mr. Speaker, and my last point, Governor Sang is also talking about ADC lands and lands that were dispossessed from people and put in the hands of either colonial companies or government agencies, but have been successively since independence been taken away, alienated, and given to who is who in the echelons of leadership. The government must, through the National Land Commission, Mr. Speaker, find ways and means of settling deserving people and not using land to be given to people who are well-to-do as gifts for political considerations. This is the only way we can avoid losing lives, losing property, and above all, Mr. Speaker, endangering the lives of Kenyans because of lack of poor planning, and above all, the National Land Commission not being able, having been now in office for 10 years, failing to come up with any tangible policy that can help avoid this kind of calamities. I congratulate Governor Sang, and I hope the committee will do a good job on this.
Leader of Majority.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Let me also support this petition, because, as you know, Speaker, what has been said about Nandi can be said about West Pokot and neighboring Marakwet. We have suffered countless landslides and mudslides. In fact, the latest one, Speaker, as you know, is the one that covered a whole town called Chesagon, absolutely with rocks and boulders that came from and Speaker, just to support that the injustices that are historical should be addressed now. This is a moment to do that. And the reason, Mr. Speaker, why people now cultivate higher up in the mountains, because land has become very scarce. And the trees have been cut, forests have been destroyed. And so now we are prone to this kind of things. And so as the committee looks at all these things, Speaker, there are a number of things that go with lands that are not flat. And West Pokot is one such land. There are very few flat areas in West Pokot, a lot of mountain, and that's what the whole situation in Nandi is like. And so we just want to support this statement. As the committee deals with this, Speaker, let them take cognizance of the other areas that have gone through this and see that we don't just look at Nandi only, but let's look at the solution totally and come up with the ability to deal with these things. The National Land Commission, on the other hand, Speaker, on lands that have been alienated or given to the ADC or something like that, when the time comes, it should be used for solving problems, Mr. Speaker, for those who are having difficulties. Because we know, Mr. Speaker, if you don't do that, the people are going to squeeze up in those areas and cause damage to everybody. They're going to go up the hill, up the mountains, and cause damage to everybody. So in supporting and asking that the committee give us a report, but let's take cognizance of areas like this. These are not the only areas. I mean, in Kenya there are many, but just wanted to support Governor Sang for doing this. Thank you.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you. I rise to support the petition by Governor Sang. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the things that really baffles me is the first government of this Republic of Kenya. It actually makes the colonial government look like philanthropists. If you look at the issues that have been raised by Governor Sang, one of the things that really bothers me is the role of ADC and the land which is still owned by ADC. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you go out there and ask the poor people who live in Nandi or even in Masailand if they know anything about ADC, they will just tell you ADC is a government state agency that was formed to enrich a few people. I remember a few years ago, Mr. Speaker, sir, there was a case where it was alleged that the former powerful minister Nyachai bought over 17,000 acres of land from ADC at a cost of 343,000 shillings at the expense of the poor Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't think there is any reason to deliberate further on this matter. ADC is dead as an institution. In Laikipia, the Samburu land, which is now managed by ADC, is taken by powerful individuals. In Nandi, there is no reason as to why Kenyans should be suffering and living up in the cliff. In fact, Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the recommendations that maybe this Senate should sit down and really highly consider is a proposal that that land, which is owned by ADC, be subdivided and given to those poor Kenyans who are living up the hills. These corporations were set up to advise us on the best practices in dairy farming, the best practices in beef production. But you go to those farms now. Most of them are owned by former powerful people who made up the successive governments. So in the committee that should be looking at that petition by Governor Sang should extend their finding in knowing how many people own those ADC lands and what acreage, so that poor Kenyans who have now turned themselves into squatters can be given an opportunity to also live a life like every other person. Mr. Speaker, sir, COVID-19 showed us one thing, that it doesn't matter the amount of money you have. We are all equal. So what we need to do is to find a way, and this Senate must now rise up to the occasion and find an opportunity to defend those poor squatters who are made squatters by our own governments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Langat Christopher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me this opportunity to make a contribution to this very important statement from Governor Sang. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that my great disappointment come on two areas, on matters, landslides, and natural disasters that normally befell Kenyans. I tend to think that if the geologists that we have in this country can study in a robust way in advance to identify some prone areas to these disasters, it is very possible to advise people to settle in safe areas. So the greatest challenge we have, I don't know, is on policy that guides research and identification of these particular landslide-prone areas so that people are advised in advance on the dangers of this particular landslide, Mr. Speaker. So I would like to advise the committee that will take over this particular matter seriously to make sure that clarification on matters policy are put in place so that proactive measures be put in place to prevent this very regular and issue that is happening every now and then. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I want to raise that whenever these particular disasters comes around, I'm very much disappointed by the way mitigation processes are done. You can see some areas that are so clear that the government goes there and distributes some 20 bags of maize, and those people are forgotten. Up to now, some bodies have not been even identified in some areas. Even right now, as we are talking, Mr. Speaker, some places in Bomet were affected by flood, and not even one sack of maize has been taken to those people who were affected by the national government. So the greatest challenge that we have is the way the government reacts or mitigate this particular process. I would rather say it is selective and there is no fair distribution of food and other mitigation measures to these people whenever this challenge comes. So our government should move from being reactive to at least engaging themselves into a proactive measures so that people are advised in advance and settle in other places. That some people are saying here that some good land has been used to settle some very rich friends of the government instead of settling these people. So I want to really thank Governor Sang, and I want to say the committee that will take over this must concentrate on proactive measures to solving these particular problems. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, first comment is I would have loved to see the statement, this petition coming under Standing Order number 44, where the governor issues a statement and then that statement is tabled here through the senator. But the petition is good enough. Mr. Speaker, the solutions to this problem have already been canvassed here. Senator Sakaja and I proposed the disaster management bill. It would handle the disaster that is in Elgeyo Marakwet, Samburu, and many others following the tragedy that was in Solai. The solutions are already available. The committee should not look any further because those solutions are available. The second one, Mr. Speaker, historical injustices, Mr. Speaker, are not going to be handled in the legal regime currently in force. Mr. Speaker, in the last session, I brought a motion on historical injustices. The law that is currently in force under the Lands Act, Mr. Speaker, has cut the hands and legs of National Land Commission. There's nothing much they can do except issue a recommendation. Again, to the committee that you commit this petition, Mr. Speaker, the framework that was proposed by Senator Orengo when he was Minister for Lands in the land policy of 2009, April, is the one that needs to be followed under Article 66 to give the National Land Commission teeth like a court to issue orders that can be enforced, as opposed to, Mr. Speaker, what is now in the law. And now that, Mr. Speaker, I've seen some element of a truce between yourself and your colleague of the other jurisdiction in the other house, Mr. Speaker, it's a high time we revisited the question of historical injustices legal framework. Because, Mr. Speaker, it is available, the Constitution has given the framework, but the current framework as it is, the National Land Commission can only issue a recommendation. That recommendation, Mr. Speaker, was not what was contemplated under Article 66. Lastly, to say, Mr. Speaker, our former colleague, Governor Sang, has a knack for historical injustices. The Committee of Legal Affairs, which he was deputizing, Mr. Speaker, took us to the Talai clan to visit them on historical injustices. I'm aware that the first historical injustices case was actually filed by Nandi County. Mr. Speaker, the question is, why is the National Land Commission unable to deal with its mandate? Mr. Speaker, to the committee that you will give this work, we know, and these colleagues here know, that the Ministry of Lands has made sure that the National Land Commission cannot function. They have no offices. They have not been given any work to do. In fact, that commission is more idle than any other commission. And Mr. Speaker, the solutions are available. If they ask, we'll give them the material that we have used before. But I would like to congratulate the governor of Nandi for continuously advocating for justice, for advocating for human rights, and for being at the forefront for defending the plight of those people, Mr. Speaker, who are being trampled on as if they are not Kenyans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Murkomen Onesmus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Governor Sang, being a former senator, for demonstrating his faith in this House, Mr. Speaker, particularly in the process of resolving this very important issue regarding land. The issue raised by Governor Sang is so important for us, particularly those of us who come from Kerio Valley region, particularly Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot, who are affected by landslides every year. As you know, Mr. Speaker, the Nandi situation is known to us, the Tinderet situation especially. If you look at that petition, most of the people who are displaced are the ones who used to live in the Nandi Hills area and the larger tea estates. Now, the crux of this petition, in my opinion, is the argument that the leases came to an end. And there's a responsibility in law for those leases to revert to the county government. But instead, there is irregular renewal of leases, which, Mr. Speaker, would have provided a solution to the question of resettling and dealing with the problem of the squatters. And I think that this is really a the question we need to ask ourselves, Article 66 of the Constitution, what did it really anticipate when it talked about the role of the National Land Commission, and particularly in resolving matters that related to expiry of leases? When we converted all leases to 99 years, what did we intend to do with it? And when the land reverts back to the government, what responsibility does the county government have, and what the responsibility does national government have? And what is the situation of those who are historically displaced from their homes? Because, Mr. Speaker, they are suffering twice. The land is coming back. They suffered through colonial times. They are now suffering in their own government, even after the leases have expired. So I hope the committee will not only come with a response that deals with the situation of Nandi alone, but will come also with a solution as to what do we do with the expiry of leases across the country, and what is the responsibility of county government, what's the responsibility of national government, what's the responsibility of National Land Commission. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that in the resolution of the question of landslide, again, I want to repeat that you never know. Nowadays, the rains have become erratic. At this period of time, a few years ago, like 5 years ago, it would be raining all over the country. But you never know when again it will rain in the same way it did a few months ago when our people were swept in Embobut and in all those areas of Kerio Valley. I want to really request the national government that we should not be reactionary to disasters. It's obvious that if it rains again, landslides will happen in Tinderet, it will happen along Kerio Valley, it will happen in many parts of the country. There will be floods in Western and Nyanza. Mr. Speaker, it shouldn't be that government should be reactionary. What's important is to prepare in good time and to be ready to warn people. Like Senator Langat said, what is the work of geologists? What's the work of meteorological department? So that people are warned in good time and disaster is averted, because we have lost too many lives, Mr. Speaker, and we don't want to continue seeing this. So I hope Senator Kitiomi's committee or any other committee you're going to give this responsibility, Mr. Speaker, will come back with solid recommendations that includes legal amendments, Mr. Speaker, to the existing laws. Thank you.
Senator Kajwang Moses.
Mr. Speaker, I also rise to congratulate Governor Sang for always considering the Senate as an arbiter when issues get tough. The issues of landslides would be a problem in Nandi. It would be a problem in Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot. But issues of natural disasters and the process through which they can be declared as a national emergency or a national disaster are issues that we need to address. In Homa Bay, for example, the rising levels of the lake and perennial flooding are as serious and as severe as landslides in Nandi and West Pokot. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the COVID experience, and we have seen in other countries with structures almost similar to ours, in the United States, the relationship between the federal and state governments when it comes to declaration of disasters. It is high time for Senate, through various legislations, I'm not sure whether the Sakaja and Mutula bill addressed this, the process through which national and county governments can sit together and declare national disasters. And Mr. Speaker, response to disasters should not be limited to donations of beans and maize and cooking oil, because that is what the Devolution Ministry has perfected. And Mr. Speaker, this is one of the issues that we in the Devolution Committee are committed to looking into. Finally, Governor Sang is a man with a very good understanding of the law and our standing orders. It is unfortunate that he has brought this as a petition, because the petition will be subjected to is it 60 days? And after that, we shall respond to the petitioner. I want to encourage governors to take advantage of our standing orders, and Standing Order 44 allows any governor to submit a message to the Senate. If Governor Sang would have used Standing Order 44, Mr. Speaker, I believe in your wisdom. You would have committed this to the relevant committee, and it would have been addressed as a substantive agenda of this House. It is not too late. I want to encourage the Senator for Nandi to find ways of bringing this back as a message from the county of Nandi, so that we are not restricted to 60 days to discuss such an important issue that does not only apply to Nandi, but applies to all counties. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Mazayo. Senator Sakaja. Then Senator Mwaura should come from the other extension for his petition.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I join my colleagues in really lauding Senator Sang, who happens to be a governor, for bringing this petition. In as much as the form and nature, as Senator Kajwang has ably said, could have been different, I think the content cannot be ignored. He is raising pertinent questions, and Mr. Speaker, even the committee is seeking these answers from is a committee that is extremely competent. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had the chance to attend before the Committee of Lands, chaired ably by my very good friend, Senator Gidiomi, on the matter of Langata, where thousands of residents have been threatened, and I'm in his communication with the CS, who I have also spoken to, that he can give an assurance to the people of Langata that no action as had been stipulated will take place, and we shall conclude it as a Senate because the facts have come out. So I have confidence that that committee will be able to get to the bottom of this matter that Senator Sang has brought. Mr. Speaker, even if not by way of responding to the petition in the nature in which it has come, the committee can, on its own motion, look at what already exists. This is a house that is a house of record. Mr. Speaker, this very same house unanimously passed a bill sponsored by Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. and myself on dealing with these disasters. The bill talks about early warning systems. It talks about response between national and county governments. It talks about how they coordinate. It talks about how resources are provided for. Mr. Speaker, would it be in order if I ask that your good office, especially as Senator, I think it's Senator Mutula was mentioned, the renewed or reinvigorated working relations that we now enjoy with our neighbors, who we used to call previously our noisy neighbors, that we now enjoy cordial working relations. Fast track that bill, Mr. Speaker, because it doesn't make sense to ask Senator Gidiomi to start again from scratch, a process that we did with public consultation, with public participation, with the ministries, with stakeholders after a disaster in Solai, to have to start afresh, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and I would just like to advise Senator Gidiomi, you can do a very clear and quick report that the National Assembly passes our bill. As simple as that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these issues are emotive. We shouldn't, again, and I want to pass again my condolences to the people who've lost their lives, especially in Rift Valley after these landslides, the people who are affected in Western after the floods, all the way from Kwanza constituency in Trans Nzoia to Kakamega County, Mr. Speaker. But it looks very disingenuous for us, Mr. Speaker, as leaders, time and time again to come just to say sorry. Yet we are the ones with the tools to sort this thing out. We have people here like my distinguished uncle who's been in this parliament from '92. I'm sure even he feels bad addressing the same thing and imagining that we can do the same thing and expect a different result. We have passed laws. We have protocols. Please, Senator Gidiomi, just push for the implementation of this, because we are, even you are in this parliament from, I think, the 8th parliament, if not the 7th. You have addressed this issue before. So let us just pass, Mr. Speaker, you can write to your colleague and ask him where that piece of law is. It addresses all the issues that Senator Kajwang is asking for. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I think we've reached a time in this country where we must start getting upset when we come and try to do the same thing over and over again. Mr. Speaker, this matter, as I've said, has come before this House. it has not been resolved. Senator Githiomi, you handled this in your committee before, it has not been resolved. Today is the 7th of July, Saba. Mr. Speaker, I have hundreds of Nairobians arrested for doing peaceful demonstrations because of the freedom that we enjoy today because of Saba. You know, some things must just begin to change. We can't talk about ADC land. We know the story of ADC. Senator Wetangula knows ADC in Bungoma. I know Trans Nzoia the case. We know these stories. So we can decide to be coming here for poetry and fun, or we can decide to be decisive as a house and call injustice where it is injustice and be very, very resolute in the provisions, or rather in the decisions you make. So Senator Githiomi, the ball is in your court. Senator Kajwang, you've given good proposals, but now you're a chair, not of a sessional committee. You're a chair of the most important committee in this house, devolution. On your own motion, do something different from those who've been chairs before. Thank you, sir.
Senator Chila yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to congratulate Governor Sang for petitioning Senate to find a solution to this perennial matter. Mr. Speaker, the issues of disasters have been with us for as long as we have been a nation, and even before that. Now, Mr. Speaker, where I come from in Migori County, year in, year out, flooding invades Migori County, especially in Nyatike sub-county. We have had disasters in places like Luanda, in another place got Kachola, in another called Nyora, and in another called Aneko. If you ask these people why they continue staying there, Mr. Speaker, it is poverty, it is lack of facilitation, it's being forgotten by government. Mr. Speaker, what comes to mind is that no person would like to place himself or herself in harm's way. People get into such trouble because there are no options. Mr. Speaker, this matter is definitely being placed before the devolution committee to look at it, and I believe my good friend and neighbor Senator Kajwang is equal to this task. But Mr. Speaker, we must find a permanent solution. It will be very easy and lazy for government to say that now that we have counties, we do not give a damn because counties are able to deal with such disasters. That will not help. I think we still must hold our government accountable for the dangers that invade or attack our people, and the solution lies with the national government. County governments do not have sufficient resources to ensure that when such disasters strike, our people are taken care of. So I want to plead with our committee chair and the committee members of devolution committee to ensure that the ministry responsible gives a final and definitive answer to this perennial problem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senator. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 2321, the petition should be committed to the relevant standing committee for its consideration. In this case, I direct that the petition be committed to the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations, and the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. In terms of Standing Order 2322, the committee jointly are required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I salute you. Next petition, Senator Mwaura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Senate concerning reforms on the design and structure of the procurement framework in Kenya. We, the undersigned citizens of Kenya, and in particular the Kenyan youth at grassroots levels, draw the attention of this august House to the following: that Article 174 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 identifies objects and principles of devolved government as including giving powers of self-governance to the people and enhancing citizen participation in governance at lower levels, practicable, recognizing the right of communities to manage their own affairs and further their development, promotion of socioeconomic development, and providing easily accessible services throughout Kenya, as well as ensuring equitable distribution of national and local resources throughout Kenya. 2, that Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015 and amended in 2016, Section 33(2)(1) provides for roles and responsibilities of county governments being to promote preference and reservations schemes for small and micro enterprises and other disadvantaged groups of citizens, contractors, women, youth, persons with disabilities, minorities, and marginalized groups at the county. 3, that the existing regulatory framework on procurement are so stringent that they disadvantage youth at the grassroots from engaging in procurement activities at both national and county levels of government. 4, that the Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015 and amended thereof introduces bottlenecks, procedures that procurement becomes more of an elitist adventure as opposed to access by people from all walks of life. 5, that the vulnerable and disadvantaged persons at grassroots levels cannot participate in procurement activities at both levels of government due to the stringent regulations provided for by the amended Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. 6, that the stringent requirements of procurement laws for youth and minorities at grassroots levels of the Constitution and the well thought out AGPO program, Access to Government Procurement Opportunities. 6, that so far only the elite members of the Kenyan society seem to benefit exponentially from the government procurement opportunities, which include a bigger percentage of young people and the disadvantaged groups of persons who are the actual target groups from the said opportunities. 8, that in instances where the youth and members of the vulnerable communities qualify for government procurement opportunities, they are either used as proxies for the benefit of non-deserving persons or denied those opportunities altogether. 9, that we have made the best effort to have these matters addressed by the relevant authorities, all of which have failed to give a satisfactory response. And 10, that none of the issues raised in this petition is pending before any court of law, constitutional, or any other legal body. Therefore, your petitioners humbly pray that the Senate, 1, reviews the existing framework on procurement and makes the necessary adjustments in the interest of young people and vulnerable communities at the grassroots levels. 2, formulate procurement policies which will favor the youth and other disadvantaged groups of people at grassroots levels as opposed to a few elite at the county headquarters. 3, formulate policies which will outlaw using of deserving yet unsuspecting youth and persons with disabilities and women at grassroots levels as proxies in the access to government procurement opportunities. And 4, develop a procurement framework that is easily accessible and simple to the youth and members of the vulnerable communities, persons with disabilities at grassroots level, especially on simple procedures matters. Mr. Speaker, timely because it is re-emphasizing that even when you try to help marginalized groups of people, some people take advantage of them. And our legal codes are so stringent such that they discourage startups. And so therefore that space is still dominated by the elite people who know how to procure. And in fact, it has, while AGPO was meant for preferential procurement for previously disadvantaged groups, it is a carry-over from the BBE, broad-based black.
You've just presented the statement. Don't discuss the statement.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 231, I shall now allow comments, observations, or clarifications in relation to the petition for not more than 30 minutes. Senator Musuruve.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this petition by Senator Mora. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that when it comes to our policies, they seem to be very clear with regard to seeing to it that 30% of procurement is given to youths, women, and persons with disabilities. But when you go to the ground, Honorable Speaker, this is just theoretically in paper, but practically it is not working on the ground. I have gone to the ground many times and have found persons with disabilities miserable. They have no one to hold their hand. They were involved in the procurement process. And at one point, I even tried to reach out to the county to see what exactly is the problem. But I realized, Honorable Speaker, that persons with disabilities are not given an opportunity to even procure, despite the fact that it's very clear within policies that they need to be given an opportunity for procurement. And this is the only win-win situation that we would have as a country for our persons with disabilities who always languish in poverty, as women also who also are among the poor in the world over. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, they need to review these policies that are in place so that the policies are able to corroborate with what exactly is on the ground. I want to just put a point in case, an example of what has been happening even during this COVID period. You'll find, Honorable Speaker, that there's some work that even women are able to do. There's some work that persons with disabilities are able to do. But back in the counties, they are not given an opportunity. I once went to the county and I almost cried, Honorable Speaker, because I found persons with disabilities in the county really struggling to make masks, and they were telling me they really wanted to make, but they were not given an opportunity. So I want to call upon governors, wherever you are, kindly remember that persons with disabilities are your constituents also, and give them an opportunity where they have talent. We have to nurture this talent. We cannot see our persons with disabilities dying in poverty, yet they have talent. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that this is a petition that should go to the right committee, and we have to review how we really look at our vulnerables in this country. Are we being fair to them? Are we seeing to it that there's parity when it comes to economic development? There's a lot of disparity when it comes to economic development with regard to persons with disabilities, and this is a wrong that we must correct as a country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
Leader of Minority.
Mr. Speaker, I want to support this petition very strongly, and more particularly because, Mr. Speaker, if you read the Constitution, Article 227, it was speaking to which this petition is talking to, because knowing that in the past, certain categories of people had been either discriminated or they did not have the means to be competitive in procurement processes. They're actually very complicated. And what happens when a process is very complicated? People build up cartels, people have insider information. So if you're somebody suffering from disability, or you're a young person who is trying to venture into business, it is extremely difficult to get yourself into business under the current legal framework. Therefore, this petition is justified. And I think we should go beyond just the committee looking into it and reporting. I think the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act should speak to what has been brought out in this petition, so that if you want the youth and certain people who are specified in the Constitution to not suffer from an unfair advantage, then the law should be positive, should be couched and framed in such a way that it is possible actually during these procurement processes to enable the youth and the other disadvantaged groups to take part in business and take part effectively in procurement processes. But I just wanted to point out that, first of all, the Article 227 of the Constitution was built out of a mischief, the past malpractices in this sector. This is something that you don't find in many constitutions in the world. And yet our Constitution talks about the need for having a fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective procurement processes. And other than that general statement in the Constitution, which is mandatory because it is couched using the word shall, but if you look at Article 2 of that particular article, it talks about, and if I may read, Mr. Speaker, an act of parliament shall prescribe a framework within which policies relating to procurement and asset disposal shall be implemented and provide for any or for all or any of the following. Categories A, categories of preference in the allocation of contracts. B, which is the most important, the protection or advancement of persons, categories of persons, or groups previously disadvantaged by unfair competition or discrimination. And this is what is important, because I think if you look at the procurement policies of the government even at the moment, there is a general objective of trying to reach out to the youth particularly. But in real life, these contracts and procurement are not awarded to the youth. It is the same old people who get business and actually advance their cause using the youth and so on. So I think this petition should be looked into, and I thank the petitioners and the distinguished senator from Kiambu for bringing this very important and valid petition. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, let me, since I'm on the floor, today is Saba, and a lot of people who actually took part in Saba were young people, and it's not by, it's by coincidence that Senator Mwaura is talking about the youth. I understand earlier Senator Sakaja was also talking about the youth. Saba was an important day in our history. It's just like we celebrate Mashujaa Day. That's the day Jomo Kenyatta and his colleagues were arrested. It was an event created out of a crisis, a conflict. The government in power at that time were arresting these people for fighting injustice. Now, for Kenyans who want to celebrate Madaraka Day and they're being arrested, it is something which is totally shameful. It is totally unacceptable. And I urge the government that those who are in custody today should be released without any conditions, because they were just peaceful demonstrators. And they are actually not causing any chaos. All they are doing is to signify the importance of this day called Saba, which, Mr. Speaker, since you come from Bungoma, the distinguished senator from Bungoma is here. On that Saba day, Masinde Mulere wore a suit. To that Saba day, he was in a suit, unlike many of us. It was a very important day for him. And for some people to treat this day as if it is some casual event in our history, I think it's completely despicable. And those who are in custody should be released forthwith. And if the president can hear me, because those who are out in Saba are like the same people who were taken to detention in 1952, who were taken to Kapenguria. Why should we celebrate Mashujaa Day and don't celebrate Saba? This is shameful. Aibu kubwa sana. Shetani ashindwe.
Order, Senator. Senator Sakaja.
Mr. Speaker, I sincerely want to thank Senator Orengo. You know, us as the younger senators in this house, we realize that indeed we stand on the shoulders of giants. And Mr. Speaker, we do not take it for granted that the freedoms that we enjoy today were hard fought. And many times Senator Orengo will tell you, because he is my, not even elder brother, he's my dad. And we sit down and he's a mentor. And when we hear stories of what happened, Mr. Speaker, there's a time when I was chairman of TNA, I was on TV with Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, and the debate got a bit heated. So Professor Anyang' Nyong'o said, where were you in 1992 when we were fighting for multipartyism? I told him, I'd have loved to be there, but I was in class 2. So it was impossible. Every generation has its role, its time and its space. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I earlier raised this matter. And I'll be bringing the statement. Because the entire morning today, Mr. Speaker, I've been on phone, reaching the IG, reaching all these people. Mr. Speaker, I have 8 young people in Kayole police station. From Kariobangi to Kayole, Huruma to Kibra. Mr. Speaker, I have 6 in Pangani police station. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, I have another 6 in Central police station. In Kibra, from Kibra, they're being held at Kilimani police station, Senator Orengo, and I might need your legal services. I have their names, Zeta Ochieng, Vincent Odhiambo, Frank Chacha, another 15, Mr. Speaker, and at Pangani police. Mr. Speaker, it will be such a big shame for a country to take for granted its journey of liberation, Mr. Speaker. It is an insult to the democracy we have now, the freedom we have. And sometimes, Mr. Speaker, I tell Senator Orengo that even in this time where we have the handshake, where we are in cooperation agreement with Senator Mutula, let us never forget that we saw fidelity to this constitution to protect this constitution, the rights of our people, and democracy. And I always say that even if we support government, the best support to give government is by speaking the truth. Today's events have been unfortunate, and again I'm calling upon the Inspector General not only to release them unconditionally, as Senator Orengo said, but to apologize for arresting these young people. Mr. Speaker, on to the petition by Senator Maura. I want to thank Senator Isaac Maura. He has proven to really look out for the interests of young people. I'll take again where Senator Orengo left off, because he mentioned the Constitution talks about certain provisions of an act of parliament, statutory provisions that we put in place. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, and Senator Maura, if he remembers well, he will tell you, because I was with him in the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I brought a raft of amendments to this law, the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, Mr. Speaker, in 2015. Mr. Speaker, if you go to section 157, and maybe this might even guide you in terms of which committee you give this petition. Mr. Speaker, we put very specific provisions in the Public Procurement Disposal Act to make sure that our young people, our women, and persons with disability have at least a preference and reservation. Those are 2 different things, and many of these accounting officers don't know, of 30%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 157 talks about the preferences that are non-discriminatory, allow competition amongst eligible persons. But Mr. Speaker, 157.5 says very clearly, an accounting officer of a procuring entity shall, not may, not should, it says shall, when processing procurement, reserve a prescribed percentage of its procurement budget, which shall not be less than 30% to the disadvantaged group, and comply with the provisions of this act. Mr. Speaker, I went further ahead to make sure, and I remember moving this amendment, and I was very proud of the day the President signed it into law, that, Mr. Speaker, that when paying this procuring entity, because we saw the mischief that would come, that people will give their daughters, their girlfriends, their family, instead of those deserving groups, or register groups in the name of young people, and then go and procure themselves. We said that when paying, Mr. Speaker, every procuring entity, this is 157.11, shall ensure that all money paid out on enterprise owned by youth, women, or persons with disability is paid into an account where the mandatory signatory is that youth, woman, or person with disability. Mr. Speaker, there are many other provisions, but the final one, which shows that there's nothing new that Senator Maura needs to ask for, is just implementation of this. Mr. Speaker, Parliament has failed, counties have failed, and national procuring entities have failed and have breached this provision. It says that the authority, first of all, in 12, the procuring entities at the national and county level shall make a report every 6 months. Every 6 months. To the procurement authority. This report shall satisfy compliance with the 30% and shall provide data disaggregated to indicate the number of youth, women, persons with disability whose goods and services have been procured by the procuring entity. And then finally it says that that authority, Mr. Speaker, as I finish, shall make a report every 6 months for consideration to Parliament, for consideration by the relevant committee responsible for equalization of opportunities of youth, women, and persons with disability, which report shall contain details of the procuring entities and how they have complied with the provisions of this section. Mr. Speaker, this is the law as it exists. It has not been complied with. Procuring entities are not giving their report to PPRA. PPRA is not bringing a report to Parliament. I was so specific when bringing this amendment to say the committee responsible for equalization of opportunities. I used to chair that committee in the last Parliament. But even in this Parliament today, we have a chair, Naomi Shionga. I've seen Senator Wako coming in. She was the chair of this committee. I am sure they never once got this report. So, Mr. Speaker, just direct that this provision of the Act, because we even provide what we call a statutory secretariat in Treasury under this Act, 157:17, the Treasury operationalized a preference and reservation secretariat. This is the only one of the only secretariats provided for under statute to help and train these young people. Mr. Speaker, our laws should stop being taken as suggestions. Please direct that we get that report to this House through that committee as mentioned, and they can ask those questions. But thank you, Senator Mwaura, and thank you for all the senators who are supporting. Our young people in this country are the trustees of our country's posterity. They must be given these opportunities that they deserve. County governments and national government, we've all failed, including us as Parliament, because we've not implemented this very obvious and specific time-based provision of our law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I stand to support the Kenyans who have brought this petition and the distinguished Senator Mwaura who conveyed it to the floor is based on the provisions of Article 227 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, when we put this provision in the Constitution, it was on the clear understanding that the biggest entity that any citizen can do business with is government. That is where all procurements and many, many business opportunities lie for provision of goods, services, and other things. And the Constitution is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that the government shall procure goods in accordance with a system that is fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effectiveness. And Mr. Speaker, listening to the petition and the contributions of Senators Orengo, Senator Sakaja of Nairobi, and others, it is very clear that this provision is honored in breach, total breach. Nobody cares, Mr. Speaker, when you go to the counties, you go to the national government institutions, you'll find that the people who have been procuring goods and services and giving these services and goods to government are the same cartels. You'll find a contractor, Mr. Speaker, has a company for youth, and the man is 70. He has a company for women, and he's a man. He's a company for all man of company for disability, and he's not disabled. And they just keep on rotating all through and capture these disadvantaged persons, young people without capital, women without capital, disabled persons without capital, and give them token gifts for using the advantage to get work. I do agree absolutely, Mr. Speaker, with my distinguished nephew, the Senator for Nairobi, that we need a proper reporting system as provided in the law. And I wouldn't even want to go the route you went, Mr. Speaker, by asking you to direct. Committees must know their work. They don't need your direction. A committee that is given authority to do work for this House and this country must be proactive, must read and understand the law, and must be able to cause things to be done in accordance with the law without necessarily asking you, Mr. Speaker, to give direction. Because the law is the law. It is clear and must be followed. Mr. Speaker, I want the committee that you are going to commit this petition to in fact summon the Director of Procurement from the Treasury to explain why this process has not been done since the passage of the law and since the passage of this constitution. To date, Mr. Speaker, we still continue hearing women crying, youths crying, PWDs crying, because it is business as usual. And as I finish, Mr. Speaker, I also want to pay tribute to the Saba celebrations of today. And I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that the level of brutality being meted on Kenyans in very peaceful causes is worrying and frightening. When we were students at the university, Mr. Speaker, and probably my brother from Mandera could remember, we used to routinely celebrate JM Day. In fact, the university was always destined for closure on JM Day. The government brutalized Kenyans until JM Day died. Nobody talks about it. You cannot, Mr. Speaker, be having Mashujaa Day engraved in our constitution and celebrated around the country when the heroes and the Mashujaas of this country cannot be mentioned by peaceful processions by the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, this weekend, my brother Musalia Mudavadi and I were in Busia County, and we decided to go and see Mr. Philip Masinde, an elder statesman in our community, a former member of parliament, a former minister, and a respected person. On arrival at his residence, Madam Speaker, we found a truck of police with tear gas and guns blocking the entrance to his home. It's a big shame, Mr. Speaker. You recall 2 weeks ago, Madam Speaker, I was driving home with colleagues escorting me. The police followed us like they were chasing criminals, shooting and firing tear gas, women who are trading by the roadside on markets, Kamukuyo Market, Kimilili Market, Bukoli Market. Where are we headed to, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker? We need this country. If the president of this country had the humility to stand before a House of Parliament, jointly sitting, and give an apology for sins committed by his predecessors, I thought that was a turning point for freedom in this country. And this freedom, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, must be protected by everybody. And those who are gloating into what they think is not their business, very soon it will be their business as well. Madam Speaker, I beg to support this petition, and I hope that the committee that will look at this petition will not only gloss over issues and come and tell us that youths, women, and PWs are ignored and are not benefiting from the provisions of the Constitution, but tell us proactively what needs to be done so that we don't slip back to what has been going on. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kilonzo Mutula Jr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Allow me first to associate myself with the sentiments of Senator Orengo, Senator Wetangula, Senator Sakaja, about the plight of the Saba heroes and people who have innocently been arrested for peaceful demonstration. Madam Speaker, had the likes of Masinde Muliro, Rubia, Orengo, Shikuku not taken it upon themselves to face the KANU government at the time, there are many people sitting right in front of me who would not be here. One is the Nandi senator. The second one is Senator Sakaja. The other one is Maura. People who I admire because they have managed to come to this Senate. They sit with Senator Orengo, Senator Wetangula at a very youthful age. It is because of affirmative action and the fight for democracy and space. It is unfortunate. Sometimes I think that the policemen in this country file returns just like marketers for commissions for the number of people they arrest. Because why would you arrest people and lock them in a police station on Saba during COVID? I mean, what point are you making? And to who? And for what? The people in China in Tiananmen Square demonstrate daily. Nobody bothers them. And Europe. Even Hyde Park. Daily, every day, people are demonstrating about everything, including the sun, the clouds, everything under the sun. And I think this constitution, Madam Speaker, was the reason why we enjoy all the freedoms. Somebody said, Madam Speaker, and to echo the sentiments of Senator Wetangula, freedom is like toothpaste. The minute you remove it, you cannot return it. And we cannot allow, Madam Speaker, for the people who, like us, to be arrested, because if we don't condemn this arrest, we are next to be arrested and to be mistreated. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, and to support the petition of Senator Maura, the person who made this proposal for AGPO is none other than the distinguished nephew of Senator Wetangula, Senator Sakaja, seated right here with us. Once again, just like the petition by the Nandi governor, the solutions are available. I agree with the sentiments raised on the floor. Madam Speaker, the only thing, and I think it can be done, I'm still waiting for a governor to be impeached for not giving contracts to the youth and women and persons with disability. Isn't it a constitutional violation not to conform to the affirmative action? In fact, the definition of affirmative action, Madam Speaker, includes measures designed to overcome, ameliorate an iniquity or systematic denial or infringement of a right or fundamental freedom. How can we allow young people? Justice Kwach used to call them phantoms, phantoms of the imaginations of the makers. These companies that are made by people who are 70, who are 80, who are men who pretend to be women, who are not disabled pretend to be disabled, is indeed, Madam Speaker, obtaining by false pretenses. It's actually obtaining by false pretenses. We should demand an audit from every national government entity, from every county government entity of their compliance of 30%. Because it is a violation. I repeat, it is a violation. It's not an irregularity, it's a violation. It is a violation because the people you are talking about are the majority, the youth. The people like Senator Gertrude Museruve, who should be looked at with a sympathetic eye. Madam Speaker, please commit and ask this committee not to grapple too much and grope in the dark. The solutions are available. We want an audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. For the remaining 5 minutes, Senator Kachwang, 2.5 minutes, Senator Gerard Gate, 2.5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, 30 years later, the youth are saying it's not yet Uhuru. And that's why the young people have brought this petition to this House so that the House can save them from the greed of people who rig procurement and tenders in county and national governments. 30 years ago, Madam Speaker, we had the Saba Day. And 30 years ago, it's interesting that some of the members of this House, Senator Sakaja still had his milk teeth. And Senator Cherargei, I think, was in a semi-solid state. And today, he has the privilege of sitting with the people who led Saba. And on Saba Day, there were two sides to the story. So it's not just about Senator Orengo. It's also about the people who are in Kanu. Every coin has two sides. Madam Speaker, we are extremely indebted to the people who opened up the democratic space that allows us today to speak our minds. Those people who are arrested today, they were protesting against police brutality. Not too long ago, my president, President Uhuru Kenyatta, while addressing the Atlantic Council, said that all lives matter. The protesters today were carrying banners saying that all lives matter. They were protesting against police brutality. Mr. President, you must order the release of those protesters if indeed you meant every word you said, that all lives matter. Madam Speaker, coming back to this petition, because you've given me 2.5 minutes, not too long ago, the President ordered the resignation of accountants and procurement officers across the county. We don't know what happened to it. Mr. President, you might suffer from amnesia, but we Kenyans, we remember. We need the relevant committee to tell this House what became of the accountants and procurement officers. In the last parliament, it was fairly easy to deal with the reports on the fulfillment of ACPO because the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority would be required to report to Parliament, and we had a joint committee. That joint committee was chaired by Senator Sakaja. I was a member, and I do recall that we demanded that those reports be brought before Parliament. Now that we don't have joint committees, I want to encourage the Committee on Cohesion, even though the National Assembly could be considering the same, that they have a mandate as a competent House of Parliament to address these issues. Madam Speaker, finally, I hope that the committee that will deal with this will also look at the bottlenecks that have been introduced by IFMIS. I believe in automation, and I believe that IFMIS is a good solution if implemented properly. The e-procurement module of IFMIS has been rigged in many circumstances to disadvantage the youth and persons with disability. I support the petition.
Thank you, Senator. Finally, Senator Gerard Gay Samson Givoti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the onset, I want to condemn the arrests of many Saba protesters that were arrested today. That is violation of Article 37 of the Constitution. I've seen people like Frank Charger and many others who were arrested and many other police stations across the city. We want to ask the Inspector General of Police and the President and the CS in charge of Interior to release them because they were not violating any law. They were just exercising their democratic right. And apologize to the nation and to many young people. Madam Speaker, you are aware, being my neighbor, you are aware what happened in Lesos, and we saw yesterday in Rioma in Kisii County, where police, out of excess use of force and even extrajudicial killings, they led the people to riot and burn down police station in Lesos in Nandi County. Madam Speaker, this police brutality must stop. We are seeing a very dangerous trend in this. The police, instead of providing law and order, they are now misusing that power that has been given under the law. Madam Speaker, I want to laud the heroes of Saba who have fought for freedom of democracy in this country. I might be young those days when this Saba was started, but I want to encourage people like Senator Orengo, although he has stepped out, to continue keeping the fight of democracy in this country, and like what we are witnessing at the moment. Madam Speaker, secondly, I want to laud Senator Maura, who is the newest, youngest, one of the panel speakers, for this wonderful petition to the Senate. Under Article 55, Madam Speaker, the youth have been given through an affirmative action. What I'm requesting, as Senator Moses Kajwang has said, we need an audit of all 47 county governments and the national government on the number of tenders that they have awarded to the young people in this country, Madam Speaker. The issue of young people being used as flower girls and page boys in access to tender awards in this country, in county governments, in national government, Madam Speaker, must stop. And I've seen we cannot be reduced to what we call kazi mtaani. It is a wonderful idea by the president to start kazi mtaani. But we want those young people to be empowered. We don't want to be relegated to kazi kwa vijana. We want also to sit in boardrooms and make decisions. We want also to make money as young people, Madam Speaker. And therefore, as young people who have a privilege and honor to serve in this House as representatives of many young people, Madam Speaker, we want to say that petition is timely. We need an overhaul of the system of the procurement. And I want to challenge the committee that will be committed as I conclude, Madam Speaker, is to give us an entire audit of the procurement system so that we can know where we need to amend or provide legislative and policy direction. And I want to appeal my seniors like Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. and the rest. When those amendments, Senator Wetangula, who is the party leader, when those amendments will come to the floor of the House, kindly stand with the young people, stand with the people living with disability and the marginalized in this country. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, pass one to Standing Order 2321. The petition should be committed to the relevant committee, Standing Committee, for its consideration. In this case, I direct that the petition be committed to the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. In terms of Standing Order number 232, 2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Honorable Senators, before we go for the last petition from Senator Mwaura still, I have a communication to make. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 41, number 41.3 and 4, I have received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly on the appointment of a member of the Parliamentary Service Commission. I quote, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Orders 41.1 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby transmit a message to the Senate that pursuant to the provisions of Article 1272D of the Constitution and of the first schedule of the Parliamentary Service Act 2019, by a resolution passed on Thursday, June 25, 2020, the National Assembly appointed the Honorable Rachel Ameso Amolo as a member of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Now, therefore, in accordance with the said provisions of the standing orders, I hereby convey the aforementioned resolution of the National Assembly and invite the Senate to also consider the said person for appointment to the Parliamentary Service Commission. I thank you. Point of order from Senator of Homa Bay.
Madam Speaker, I appreciate the communication and the message from the National Assembly, but if my memory serves me right, the relevant committee has already laid their paper, which has been processed by the Senate. Would this mean that we have to start the process afresh? Because it would appear that the Senate has already made a resolution on the matter.
Another point of order from Senator Sakaja before I come to Tangula.
Madam Speaker, I have a similar concern because this matter came before us. The same message you have read has been read before. The Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs went through it and brought a report here rejecting the appointment. But the House rejected the rejection by not passing the report, in fact, not even seconding it. And so the Senate has already pronounced itself in this matter in support of the decision by the National Assembly on her nomination. Madam Speaker, unless this communication is just to confirm the appointment, which we already have no problem with, then senators will be confused to assume that you want us to go through the process again. Maybe that clarification from you, Madam Speaker, would be quite in order for us to know, because the Senate almost unanimously, with the exception of a few members of the committee, support the nomination and appointment of Honorable Rachel Ameso. Thank you.
Honorable Senator, when you talk of majority of members and there was no vote, you are also misleading us a little bit. So, Honorable Senator, hold your horse. I will communicate. I'll respond. Senator Wetangula.
The menu is to vote.
Like Senator Mutula Kilonzo and Senator Sakaja failed to understand the value of that communication and the relevance. Because a motion came to the House, it was moved, it couldn't get a seconder, it collapsed, and we went to the status quo ante of approving the appointment of Honorable Ameso. Not only that, Madam Speaker, after that, Honorable Ameso was gazetted as a commissioner. So that communication, Madam Speaker, that communication that you have read, Madam Speaker, is calling upon this House to consider the appointment of Madam Ameso as a commissioner when she has been appointed and gazetted. So what is the value of that communication, Madam Speaker? Is it misplaced or is it wrongly placed before you? Or what are we going as a House to do in furtherance of the direction that we need to consider? I can see you are being interrupted over and over.
I'm hearing you, I'm hearing you.
Yes.
Yeah.
For avoidance of doubt, Madam Speaker, a similar communication came. The committee worked on the matter, brought a report. The report was rejected, and Honorable Ameso has been gazetted as a commissioner. So what are we supposed to consider in accordance and in line with the communication you have read?
Thank you. Finally, Senator Musuruve.
Thank you very much,
Are you
Honorable.
also on a point of order?
I'm, reacting to your communication, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, I see a point of order from Senator Makueni. Then I'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just like everybody else, your communication has confused us a little. But more importantly for me is to know whether after the vote by acclamation here, whether the similar communication was read in the National Assembly. But Madam Speaker, we would, as the Legal Affairs Committee, because I was present when this was being done, the procedure of dealing with these issues needs to be clarified from your desk, because by the time this matter was sitting at the Committee of Legal Affairs, it was not quite clear the process of agreeing or disagreeing. And therefore, part of what the Speaker should do for us and for the posterity is to communicate how that process is supposed to be done, because assuming one House rejects and another one approves, there is no procedure of what is supposed to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll respond to the points of order first. Although Senator Mutula said the dangerous one, that we are not sure of the procedure of agreeing or not agreeing. We know our procedures. Honorable Senators, let me make it very clear that this is a communication to communicate a decision that has taken place already. The reason is that, as two senators have mentioned, actually a motion was brought here. It was not seconded, so it collapsed, and we lost the opportunity. Having lost the opportunity, the appointment of Rachel Ameso Amolo was done according to the Public Appointments or Parliamentary Approval Act. So this is just for information. And with that, I think we close the debate. I will only allow one person who has requested to make a comment, I think congratulating Ameso. Senator Musuruve, on behalf of all of us, so that we can move.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I want to really congratulate Hon Ameso for the appointment. And indeed, as women of Kenya, this is a plus for us. And when I look at Hon Ameso, she brings double blessings to the commission. One, as a legislator, and the wealth of experience she has as a legislator will really bring a lot of eye-opening to the commission. Creative issues that we've had as legislators, but sometimes we lack the, commissioners who really they run with the agenda. So I want to believe, Honorable Speaker, that her appointment is well-meaning, and as a woman, just like any other woman, I support appointment of women, and I think also this experience will also be good, and even for mentorship, Honorable Speaker. The fact that you've been a legislator and you've been on the ground, the issues on the ground, the issues on the ground, you can very well carry the issues to the commission, and I'm sure that she's going to move our agenda in the commission, and I'm sure even the things that we want done in the commission, she's one of the catalysts that we're going to use, as a commissioner. I support this appointment, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. I think you have done it on behalf of all of us. The last statement, which is fairly straightforward and should not, the next petition, fairly straightforward, is from Senator Mwaura. Because we are not doing well on time.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to present a petition on behalf of the petitioners, petition to the Senate concerning the gazettement of the Ondire wetlands, Kenya. Ondire is a corruption of the word Old Lake. We, the unassigned friends of Ondire wetlands, Kenya folk, citizens of the Republic of Kenya, and in particular, residents of Kiambu County, Kikuyu constituency, draw the attention of the Senate to the following. One, that there are a myriad of threats and challenges that the wetland has been facing, which has resulted to its continued degradation and overexploitation of its resources. These include, but not limited to, pollution, water abstraction, encroachment, overgrazing, plantation of eucalyptus on its riparian reserve, infrastructural development, and fodder harvesting. Two, that the wetland lacks formal protection status, which threatens the wetland and attributes to low environmental literacy among the surrounding communities and poor coordination by the stakeholders. Three, that there is continued operation of greenhouses which lack proper waste management practices, and this has led to release of chemical effluents into the wetland, which is in violation of Rule 81 of the Water Resources Management Rules 2006, which prohibit discharge or application of any poisonous, toxic, noxious, or obstructing matter, radioactivity, waste, or other pollutants into a water body. And four, that some of the land owners surrounding the wetland have encroached into the wetland for agricultural expansion and construction of residential homes. The riparian landowners have built permanent structures and have cultivated horticultural crops beyond the setback line. The eroded soil causing sedimentation of the wetland, and forgetting to realize the issue of the ground seepage of sewage effluent into the wetland, that there have been obstruction of unregulated water from the wetland, and there are about over 40 permanent water pumps drawing water from the wetland, yet this is the source of, one of the sources of Nairobi River, out of which 50% lack permits and are unmetered, making it difficult to monitor water abstraction from the wetland. And this, of course, contravenes Section 36 of the Water Act 2016, which requires the issuance of permits for abstraction of water with works of water source. 6, that we have made the best efforts to have these matters addressed by the relevant authorities, all of which have failed to give a satisfactory response. 7, that none of these issues raised in this petition is pending in any court of law, constitutional, or any other legal body. Therefore, your petitioners humbly pray that the Senate investigates this matter and, 1, initiate a formal protection status for Ondire wetland in the Republic of Kenya. 2, intervene in the matter with a view to ensure that the WRA verifies whether all of the water abstraction permits are registered or not and legalize them, and delineate the boundaries of Ondire wetland. 3, initiate the recognition of Ondire wetland Kenya as a highland bog and a major water tower and an ecosystem site. 4, initiate the process of funds allocation to carry awareness campaigns that will involve the government and private sector and fencing off of the wetland so that people can understand the importance of this too important resource so that it can be properly managed. And 5, intervene for the folk group to enable the gazettement of Ondiri wetland as a wetland area.
Thank you, Senator. As I had predicted, this was a very straightforward petition. So I will will go straight to our honorable members to give direction on this petition. Honorable Senators, pass one to Standing Order 2321. The petition should be committed to the relevant standing committee for its consideration. In this case, I direct that the petition be committed to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources. In terms of Standing Order 2322, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you, Senators. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Yes,
Majority Whip.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 7th July 2019. First, the public health COVID-19 restriction of movement of persons and the related measures, Nairobi Metropolitan Area, Extension Order number 3 of 2020, legal notice number 104 of 2020. 2, the public health COVID-19 restriction of movement of persons and the related measures, Dabab Refugee Complex and Kakuma Refugee Camp, Extension Order number 2 of 2020, legal notice 105 of 2020. 3, the public health COVID-19 restriction of movement of persons and the related measures, Mombasa County, Extension Order number 3 of 2020, legal notice number 106 of 2020. 4, the public health COVID-19 restriction of movement of persons and related measures, Mandera County, Extension number 3 of 2020, legal notice number 107 of 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next order. Point of order from Senator Gajuang, Homa Bay.
Madam Speaker, Parliament should not be seen to be acting in vain. I do recall a few weeks back, the then chair of the Delegated Legislation Committee reported to the House on his frustration at receiving notices and orders and statutory instruments that had already expired. Madam Speaker, it is in the public domain that the movement orders that have just been laid on the table of the House today lapsed at 4 a.m. this morning. I am not requesting for a direct answer, but Madam Speaker, you need to guide the House, and particularly the Delegated Legislation Committee and the Executive. Even though this order lapsed at 4 a.m. today, that order was in force for 30 days. There was nothing preventing the Executive from bringing that particular notice to the attention of this House. The Executive seems to be taking the House for granted, and Madam Speaker, you need to guide us on how we deal with expired notices.
Senator Sagaja, Nairobi City.
Now, Madam Speaker, my issue is different. I have an approved paper to lay on the progress report of COVID. And you're moving to the next order, yeah.
That is coming. Maybe in response to Senator Sagaja, we are really dealing with unprecedented times. And do remember also that this House does not sit the way we have normally sat for 3 days. So because of that one day that we sit here, I do agree with you that we should be getting things on time. But because of what's prevailing currently, I think it is something that's understandable for that reason only, that even us, we cannot sit for more than 1 day. Thank you. Next order. You are laying your papers, Sakaja? Yes, please, Senator Sakaja, Chair of the Committee on COVID 2019.
Situation. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to lay on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 7th of July, 2020, the 8th progress report of the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to give notice of motion that the House do adopt the 7th and 8th progress reports of the ad hoc committee on the COVID-19 situation.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Thank you. There are several statements and there are several apologies. The first statement is supposed to be from the Senator of Trans Nzoia, Senator Dr. Michael Mbito. Just in case he's in the other building, he should move forward. The Senator of Kakamega, Senator Clovis Malala, we have received apologies. That takes care of 1 and 3. The next statement was from Senator Bishiro. We have also received an apology that she will not be able to make that statement. So the next statement is statement number 4 from Senator Beatrice Kwamboga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation regarding the status of the Nairobi Metropolitan Area Transport Authority. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, explain the status of the authority since its creation was proposed in 2017. Number 2, explain the status of policy on metropolitan area mass transit system, including bus rapid transit and light rail transit systems, which were proposed for the city. And number 3, explain the status of implementation of the Sustainable Integrated Public Transport Strategy and Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan for the city of the Nairobi. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Should I? I've got another one.
Thank you, Senator. You also have the next statement. And because the first statement is that straightforward, the statement stands committed to the Committee on Roads and Transportation. Yes, Roads and Transportation, and we give them 14 days to come back to us. Next statement is from Senator Kwamboga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I raise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education concerning the alleged rise in cases of teenage pregnancy during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, explain reasons for the alleged rise in adolescent pregnancies during school holidays, as well as whenever there is an interruption in the normal school calendar, with reference to the over 28,000 school children, according to the Kenya Health Information Systems, across the nation, whose education will be affected due to pregnancy during the COVID-19 season. Number 2, outline the steps the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology intends to take, if any, to ensure that school-going girls do not become sexual prey due to the interrupted school calendar. And number 3, elucidate measures, if any, that have been put in place to ensure that the men responsible for the teenage pregnancies are punished for their actions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Haji Faria Ali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to thank Senator Komboka for bringing this statement. Madam Speaker, the state of affairs of this country in terms of teenage pregnancy is so dire, Madam Speaker. And it is in a situation where it demands attention from the authority and the parents and everybody, Madam Speaker. And as a house, this is an issue that we should speak to all of us, because I think it is so sad that to an extent that even some of these pregnancies are as the result of some parents, some relatives, some teenage boys. And Madam Speaker, some of these girls who get pregnant are even, they are not mature enough even to determine their own destiny in terms of what is good and what is bad, because they have matured physically, but mentally they are still young children, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, sometimes you just wonder, in terms of our society, where are our societal beliefs? And I think as a country, this is the high time we need to ask ourselves, where did we go wrong as a society, Madam Speaker? Because we cannot have, 14-year-old, 10-year-old child getting pregnant by sometimes even the people that they trust so much, either teachers, some relatives, some even parents. And Madam Speaker, I think, where did we go wrong? When I used to grow up, Madam Speaker, when a child is found doing funny things, Madam Speaker, whoever is there, whether it is your parent or somebody else, would cane you thoroughly until you get, disciplined, Madam Speaker. But all that is under the bridge, and we have become like so westernized that we have lost our values as Africans, Madam Speaker, or people who are believe in religion, whether it is Islam, Christianity, or any other religion. There is nobody who accepts, adultery, or people who are not married to engage in such a behavior. Madam Speaker, I think we need to evaluate our own social fabric to determine in terms of where did we go wrong, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I also challenge the churches, the mosque, everywhere in the religion. The people who take care of religious beliefs and all this, that they need to address some of these things. And also, I'm not leaving out the parents, because they also need to be responsible for their children, and to ensure that, sometimes you send a small girl to the river to go and fetch water, and then she is raped on her way back or when she's going there. So, Madam Speaker, there are so many things that we need to look at this thing as wholesome, and I think we need to analyze properly, Madam Speaker, to get what is right in terms of our society. Madam Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Gerald Gay Samson.
Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate and support Senator Beatrice Kwamboka for that statement. I think as a country, it has become a national crisis where we are seeing unprecedented cases of teenage pregnancies in the country. The sad part is sometimes there are people who take advantage of the young girls, but also there are also sometimes, I saw a case where I think I had it right from Muranga, where a 9-year-old girl was also found to be pregnant. This has been a biggest problem in this country. I think, Madam Speaker, sometimes it could be other boys. Secondly, there are people who take advantage. And therefore, Madam Speaker, when we passed Sexual Offences Act in this country, it was supposed to be used to ensure we punish such perpetrators who take advantage of young girls who are below 18 years, as provided by the law. Madam Speaker, it's very sad affairs, and I want to challenge the parents. I think for parents, this is a very unique challenge, especially with the COVID cessation movement and lockdown issues. Now, Madam Speaker, I've had the Minister in charge of Education, Professor Makoa, and the education stakeholders, interreligious faith forum have said, and even the government, that up to 2021 January, then schools will resume. This is the biggest challenge to the guardians, to the parents, that they must come out strongly and monitor where their children are, Madam Speaker. I had a case yesterday in the news where a girl left all the way from Kericho to Bomet, yet the parents were not aware. So, Madam Speaker, we have a big challenge as guardians, our parents, to ensure, and I hope the committee that will be committed, the statement by Senator Kwamboka, that they must look and give us, what is it really the problem? Is it a societal issue? Are our morals eroded? Is there a problem that we are allowing access of too much internet and funny ideas? And the other day I saw Twitter, there is somebody by the name called Joan who is trending in Twitter, and they were showing their home. Is it our teenagers, are they so much exposed? Are we having a problem? In fact, Madam Speaker, when you are using these technological advanced issues like TVs and other things, there is always the parental guide. Should we activate that as parents and guardians in this country, Madam Speaker? And is there a problem somewhere that needs to be fixed? Because if, it's so sad. It's so sad. I think it's a serious side of affairs. And we are worried for the future generation. As my colleagues have said, some of these children are still underage. They might be physically not mature so much, but in terms of mental capacity, Madam Speaker, they are not really stable. So, Madam Speaker, where I sit, and I also, when I used to chair in this house, those days when I used to chair Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights Committees, where my learned senior, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. was my very good member and committed member, is we visited Eldoret, GK Prison, in your county, Madam Speaker. We visited Industrial Area Remand. We visited other coastal prisons in this country, Madam Speaker. We noticed that there is a high unprecedented members of course, Senator Sakaja, the super senator of Nairobi, was part of that team, and I think there is a report lying somewhere. Security Committee, and then he was the vice chair before he was moved or he resigned. Madam Speaker, we noticed one of the biggest problems in our prisons, and I want members to listen to this carefully. We noticed that most young boys of 16 years form a huge chunk of over 80% of the people in remand. Therefore, we need also to agree, because sometimes, Madam Speaker, I'm not saying there should be an excuse to have teenage pregnancies in this country. But what happens when you have a 15-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy? The law says you take the boy to the prison, but the girl is left. So as members of Boy-Child Society, we are also worried that we need to look at this issue at the balance, Madam Speaker. We agree, we condemn the teenage pregnancy because it affects our children. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to advise parents and guardians who their children have gotten babies or they are pregnant, please, when the time comes to reopen school, kindly take care of that small child, allow the girl to go back to school and continue with education. Madam Speaker, in my own family, I used to have my elder sister. While in high school, fortunately or unfortunately, she got a child. But after some time, I was one of the people who took care of the child so that she can go back to school. So this subject is very critical, and I'm happy now she's almost becoming a principal of a secondary school. Yet at that time, the future looked big. So I want to challenge strongly, let us give second chances to these many young girls. And anybody found who is above 18 years, especially who have taken advantage, they should not be forgiven. Let God forgive them when they get to heaven. But us, we must punish them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, we normally allow only 30 minutes for this kind of contribution, but we have a lot of members who have shown interest. I want to urge you to take 2 minutes each because we are left with 20 minutes and I have almost 10 members. Senator Wako Naomi Jilo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important statement. As I also congratulate Senator Kwamboka for coming up with this important and relevant statement. Madam Speaker, as a nation, we should be thinking of how we can solve this problem that has become a tradition now. I remember last year, we discussed and we debated about candidates who got pregnant who are almost giving birth during the exam time. Today, we seem to be blaming COVID-19. Madam Speaker, I wonder if our young girls got in March, they shouldn't be giving birth at this time. And as a mother, I think some of them got pregnant in November or around December. It is unfortunate that in our society, we have no respect for our young girls, and that is why we are facing all these problems. And so, Madam Speaker, as I support this statement, I think we should be very careful as parents and be close to our girls, our young daughters, because to you, you may be looking at your daughter as a baby, but another man somewhere is admiring your daughter. So we should be very careful. We should also limit their movement in and out of the house and the premises. Madam Speaker, we have also given our daughters a lot of freedom, like social media. They watch a lot of, they see a lot of things happening in the TVs, and that should also be controlled by the parents. They have their phones 24 hours, and we don't know what they interact with through their phones. And so we should, as parents, be responsible and take care of what is happening. When I talk of parents, Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that some of these girls have blamed their parents, their fathers, some have blamed their uncles and close relatives. And it is unfortunate that we talk about our girls, but we don't talk about the perpetrators. Madam Speaker, I support this statement and also urge our young people, both boys and girls, to abstain totally. In the Bible, the young girls are encouraged to take care of their virginity until they are married. That's the same thing with boys. But unfortunately today, the issue of abstinence is not there. So we should, even I know even in Islam, that is not allowed. So I believe the religious leaders can also take control. We can advise our young people to abstain so that they can take care of themselves. Madam Speaker, we have a responsibility.
Please wind up.
Thank you, I will. We have a responsibility in the society, and especially as women, let us stand up for our young girls, give them relevant advice, and see how we can be role models to our girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Maura Isaac.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I support this statement by Senator Beatrice Kwamboka, the indefatigable strategist who is seated there blazing in red. And red is the color of love, and we are discussing very important matters. Madam Speaker, I want to speak to our young people, the teenagers, and tell them, most of them are jogging around. Like I know of a group of people from Githurai and Wendani who are jogging around Kenyatta University. And just to remind them that the only jogging that is required is vertical jogging, not any other kind of jogging. Because the consequences of this are very critical. Parents need to be careful, Madam Speaker, because we have seen a lot of increase in domestic violence. So if they are fighting in front of children, and the children are finding solace amongst themselves, this is the result. Because they are very idle, and they have no one to guide them. Number two, the other issue is concerning our community, the way we are living, and especially those who are in urban areas, because we no longer live in communities where older persons can advise young people, and people are busy trying to look for food because people don't have food, and then the young people are being left on their own. So it is actually a breakdown of our traditional social system, but also, it also brings out the challenge, because at some point, I was actually a high school teacher doing my teaching practice somewhere. And sometimes I used to meet my students over the weekend, Madam Speaker, without uniform. When you meet a 17-year-old, you may think this is a full-grown person you're dealing with, until they remind you, teacher, I am actually your student.
So men, please be careful, because you are actually taking advantage of these young girls because they don't have uniform, and because they're easily excitable, they also want to pass for over 18. Jua huyo ni under 18, bwana. So that we also say, because you don't also want your daughter to be done so, for that matter. And also women, not to take advantage of intense, young boys, because they're excited and they have money and they are bored because you have quarreled maybe with your family. I think, Madam Speaker, as I conclude, there has been debate about sex education in this country. And I remember in class 5 and 6, we used to have a topic called consequences of irresponsible sexual behavior. These should be emphasized to the extent that we realize that our children are no longer the way people used to be naive. Now we have WhatsApp, we have phones, and please, parents, avoid having your children with phones. What are they doing with phones? And for sure, there are no lessons coming through the phone, so that we can protect this generation. But I also support Senator Gerard Gay not to go the Magufuli way. If they have already gotten children are innocent or they are pregnant, let them go back to school and rebuild their lives.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Inima Ketut Musuruve. Please try 2 minutes.
Okay, Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. And I want to support Senator Kwamboka for coming up with this statement. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, during this COVID period time, this is the time we really know the role that teachers play in the lives of a person, the role that schools play in the life of a person, because it is in a learning situation that children learn so much. And sometimes in the home environment, parents may not be able to tell children some of the things that they need to be told. I want to suggest, Honorable Speaker, that we cannot really blame children 100% because they're still very young. Think of a girl of 11 years getting pregnant. You'll find that some of these young girls, they're enticed by, with perishables. Maybe they're given sweets, maybe they're given chips and all that, and they compromise. They're still very young, their minds have not really developed, and there's need to really follow the perpetrators of these heinous acts and ensure that they're brought to book. Some of these perpetrators, Honorable Speaker, you'll find they're caretakers of these children. Some of them are even their fathers, their stepfathers. Some of them are chiefs. Some of them are men of repute, but they just go scot-free. And it is unfortunate that the villain most of the time is always the woman. Whether she's young or old, she becomes the villain. But we have to really go back to the society and see where exactly did we go wrong. There's something wrong about the social fabric, moral fabric in the society. There is need for us to review and see how can parents also be roped in order for them to know how to impart information to their children. In as much as we're talking about the ministry is not with the children right now, but this is an indicator that schools play a very big role in the lives of people. So there's need to see how to help our children so that the education does not come to a halt. When a girl becomes pregnant, the education stops. The boy will still continue with his education, but girls' lives come to a stop. We have to see how to salvage our children. We have to see how exactly are we going to help our children. We were there, and I want to say because of the role that schools played in our lives, we are where we are. So we have to also be empathetic to the plight of children and see how to help them. But the perpetrators of these heinous acts, they should not be left. Those chiefs who are doing such things out there in Mashinani, can they be brought to book? Those even brothers and sisters and stepfathers who are doing this, can they be brought to book? Those men in ties, suits, doing this, can they be brought to book? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Ongeri Samson Kegengo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to weigh in on this matter. It is sad. In fact, on the average, 18% of the adolescent children, I call them children, are pregnant. Get pregnant at that very tender age, before the age of maturity. And therefore, not only is it a problem to parents, but it's also a health risk in this sense that these children, sometimes delivery becomes with a lot of complications, and to be able to nurture young babies through these young mothers becomes quite a task in itself. It's quite a paradox that we are educating young girls and young boys to be able to elude poverty, but unfortunately when they get pregnant, they have no source of income other than being dependent on others to be able to take care of them. It's a pity because some of them come from very vulnerable homes, very poor socioeconomic strata, and therefore create a problem in our society. And with this pandemic, it quite clearly shows you what the social fabric is all about. The social fabric in Kenya has become very rotten. And therefore, they are not even taking care of the sexuality. They are not teaching their children to avoid sexuality at this early age, because sexuality and pregnancy, when they go hand in hand, you create a lot of difficulties and problems for these young ones to survive in the environment as it is today, leave alone with the onset of COVID-19, with the socioeconomic difficulties having set in. It becomes very difficult to nurture these children. And these are the children who are sometimes abandoned on streets. These are the children who are sometimes thrown into very funny environment and very areas. And therefore, parents have a huge responsibility in ensuring that these children are put together. Just as the teachers were able to take care of parents, we're now beginning to see the gap, because more than 75% of the time of a child is spent in school. But with this onset of COVID-19, the children are at home, leave alone when the schools will be open 2021. That is going to cause more problems, and the statistics are going to change. Out of 18%, it could be they will now heading to 30, 40%, and this will be worrisome. And I thank Senator Beatrice Kwamboka for being alive to this situation and bringing this statement for us. And whatever committee goes to look at it, let them look at, first of all, the problems of teenagers, the issues of pregnancy, the complications of pregnancy, and the health concerns. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kajwang' Moses Otieno.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank Senator Kwamboka for bringing this matter, and I contribute to it with a very heavy heart, because not too long ago, my county, Homa Bay, was among the leading counties in teenage pregnancies, even before this COVID matter came to fore. Madam Speaker, sexual intercourse with a minor is defilement. It is criminal. For 380,000 teenage pregnancies, there are 380,000 criminals involved. Our prisons can only hold 52,000 people. It means for us to deal with this matter from a criminal justice system perspective, we need to build 6 times more prisons than we have today. Madam Speaker, that means then that the penal approach is not the solution. We must find a way of bringing up our children in a manner that will discourage them and will incentivize them to hold on to their virginity and to hold on to their purity until the right age. We can ride or mount the high horse and talk about, the things that children should do that we were not doing before. Madam Speaker, we have set institutions. We have got the National Government Affirmative Action Fund that is run or patronized by our women representatives sitting in the other place. What are they doing to conduct civic education and to create awareness on this particular vice? We have asked for resources to do monitoring and evaluation. We have a fund that is established with lots of money, millions of shillings per constituency. Why do we still see these numbers rising? But then, Madam Speaker, I will not put this responsibility on the doorsteps of the women representatives, because it is a huge societal issue. Madam Speaker, when we were growing up, and some of us went to school in Nairobi, pornography was very difficult to come across. If you got a copy of Playboy, it would be one copy circulating in the entire school. But today, on every phone, you can get content that corrupts the morals of our children. Madam Speaker, I am an information scientist, but I support blocking of content that is not adding value to our children. If you go to Dubai, you cannot access lewd content or sexual content. For Magoha to talk about pornography and leave it at that, what he needs to do is to tell Musheru to set firewalls so that we block certain content. But ultimately, the solution is with us as parents. The manner in which we bring up our children will determine whether they want to hold on to their purity or they want to bid it to criminals. But Madam Speaker, we have 380,000 criminals walking around free in this republic and making our children pregnant. Shame on them.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Langat, Christopher Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this very great statement from Senator Kwamboka. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, that human behavior is normally shaped by two institutions. That is the biological or the genetic part of it, and the environment. When it comes to the environment, human behavior is determined by three institutions: the family, the schooling, and the religious institutions. In this country, I want to stand shamelessly and say those three institutions have failed Kenyans. Today, parenting system, Madam Speaker, is so challenged. Parents no longer care. The only thing they do is to ask, when will the schools be open? The parents these days no longer sit with their children to advise them. Can you go to Parents' Day in schools, Madam Speaker? You will see more often than not, the parents who attend school days are only women. The fathers are no longer attending to their children. They are only there to stand and blame their daughters when they become pregnant. How many times do parents, in terms of fathers, sit with their children to talk to them on morals? They are always very busy. Whenever they attend schools, Parents' Day, they are on a hurry. They bribe their children with some gifts, and they disappear across the gates. These are the reasons why these children are suffering this grade. When we go to church, I've been a pastor for a long time. More often than not, when you go to church, those particular youth meetings, which usually shape the behavior of children, are ignored. You find the pastors preach and ask the tithes, nothing else. But actually narrowing their teachings to these young children so that they shape their behavior is always compromised. When it comes to school, we have congested the syllabus so much with academics that these children have got no time, and the teachers have got no time to teach them on morals. So when these children get some little freedom outside there, they can do anything. And I want to say also, I support what Senator Kachwang was saying, that our social media, pornography is all over. Even in our Senate social media, you could find some few days ago, some few small kids, Madam Speaker, asking, nikikupatia utaweza? I saw it and I was shocked. That narrative was going round in our social media. And even the small children are modeling those particular songs and the particular very heinous behavior, Madam Speaker. We need to control the media.
Is there a point of order from Senator Gerard Gay?
I want just for clarification, Madam Speaker, is that Senator Dr. Langat, my good friend and Senator of Bomet, has said he saw some funny content in Senate social page. It is important he can define so that Kenyans do not think that senators watch funny things in their social media, WhatsApp. And the song Femi One Utawezana is a song by Femi One and Major. So, thank you.
Senator Langat.
Cherargei, you're the only one in Jerusalem who has not seen these things. And I don't want to regret, Senator Cherargei, that I taught you 4 units in university. But I want to say you are a brilliant student. And I want to say I saw this in various social media groups. And I didn't make any comment. I realized that, maybe you have not seen, but I realized that these particular very pornographic messages and videos are so much in social media societies that even our children can see it and model. Maybe not in the social media within the Senate, but it is, you can see across several groups. And I want to say it is high time that we check in the legislations, and worst of it is the reinforcement. The reinforcers of the law in this country are very much, are not doing their work, Madam Speaker. That's what I want to say.
Thank you.
The reinforcement institutions of the legals in this country must be up and do their work. Otherwise, our children get pregnant, we shall come here, lamented, do everything, say 1 or 2, 3 things, and society continues getting eroded. I want to say every one of us must stand and go against this particular behavior. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Kangata?
Thank you. I take this opportunity first to congratulate the Honorable Senator who has brought this very timely petition statement. My comments are, for me, today there is an announcement that has been done by the CS in charge of education proposing or reopen in January. Madam Speaker, allow me to give my personal views on that issue, and I want to just oppose those views with this statement. I think it's not a good idea. I think one thing I have learned over this pandemic period is that schools, apart from being places where our children go to learn, they also somehow restrict our children, and therefore they do not do these so-called funny businesses. And therefore, the more the children stay at home, the higher the rate of pregnancies. And therefore, I think taking into account that these not to be affecting children, so far, medical evidence seems not to target young children. I think we need to propose we allow our children at least to go back, at least study 8 and Form 4. Yeah, that's my view. Because the more they stay at home, the more pregnant they become. Yeah, so meaning, my view, I want to tell CS Magoha, please, we may be saying no, we stay with our children so that the virus doesn't, spread. But I'm telling you the problems we are going to have in January, there will be too many. I think we might as well say no, we should have allowed our children to stay at school. Remember, Madam Speaker, we have AIDS. We have come up with methods of staying and living with AIDS. We have cancer. We have other forms of contagious disease in this country. So it is now time for us to come up with measures to stay with this virus. We cannot allow this virus to now affect everyone, affect our economy, and now affect our children home and doing this monkey business and now bringing this problem. And therefore, Mr. Magoha, from where I sit, I think kindly reconsider your decision to reopen the schools in January. Particularly, by the way, look here, Madam Speaker.
Senator Obomet.
Yes, I want to say that I want to say something to my.
Are you giving him information, or there's something not out of order?
Is it in order?
Yeah.
That Senator Kangata would like to inform the Ministry of Education to open schools in January just to run away from teenage pregnancy. The parents should take responsibility instead of pushing the schools to be the only custodians of morals in our society. He is one of the escapists of this particular incident, Madam Speaker. So
Thank
it
you,
is not in order.
Okay, Senator Kangata, are you telling people to escape?
Madam Speaker, allow me to explain a little bit on that point. There are many people who don't do bad things because of situations. Others don't do it because of their moral compass. So for those who don't do bad things because of situations, it makes sense. We fight those situations, like the instance case. Like myself, by the way, let me go on record. I delayed doing these things because of my parents and the school settings. I stayed for many years. Yeah, and I'm very happy, by the way, and I'm very proud of my record. I'm very proud, yeah. And therefore, I want to tell young people, you can wait, you can chill. And I think schools, they play a major role to us, this chilling business. And by the way, I'm serious, Madam Speaker, and I'm going to rest my comments on this point. Please.
Is there a point of order from Senator Masita?
I just wanted to
the clarification on my fellow senator here on what are these things, the things that you are saying. We are talking a lot of things here, but what are those things that you are not doing, that you delayed? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kangata, wind up. I know there are many things, but please wind up, because it was not out of order.
Thank you. You know, Madam Speaker has told me to wind up, so let me not answer that. Just to say thank you for this petition, but I urge the Minister and other stakeholders, please reconsider your decision to adjourn. And finally, on that point, which is very important, I'm realizing that children of the rich are still going on with their schooling. It is the children of the poor are going to be affected by this decision. Yeah, most of the children in the middle class, the upper class, their children are going to the internet, to the computer, they are doing the tutoring. So it is the poor who cannot be able to afford those facilities who are going to be affected by this closure. So for me, this decision is oppressing the poor people. And for me, I think it's very unfair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kilonzo Mutula Jr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At some time back, I mentioned about cases in Makueni, and I said this is moral decadence that we have allowed, that 10-year-olds and 15-year-olds have become fair game. But to echo the sentiments of Professor Langat, most girls look up to their fathers. It is the absentee fathers who have failed their daughters. So the men in this room must take responsibility. Just take responsibility. Don't blame the small boys. Take responsibility that you have failed your daughters. You should see the way I look when I'm hanging around my daughter. I look rough, like I'm carrying a weapon. It is your duty to protect your daughters, because your daughters are prey for men like you. The genetic disposition of boys like you is a danger to girls. So as you protect your daughters, tell your sons that those young girls are not fair game. Simple. And be rough. Senator Kangata suggests, which is wrong, that simply because children are going to school or boarding school, therefore you prevent them from being pregnant. I've got news for you. When these children are in boarding, they are getting as pregnant as when they are out of school. And I have cases. I have a teacher who was suspended, 21 girls, same school. A head teacher, yes. I have a girl who was defiled, and the medical officer who was supposed to check defiled her. I have a girl who was defiled by the uncle. This is a matter that you cannot attempt to throw blame all over the place, because we take responsibility. Take responsibility and ensure this is not happening in your community. But last, Madam Speaker, let me tell you what upsets me the most. The parents of this country are entertaining what, I don't know where this came from, but they're entertaining the idea of settling these matters out of court. Your daughter is defiled, the defiler sells a piece of land and then pays you. This is what I call blood money. The greed of politicians has gone to our parents. It's happening in the village. Why isn't it that people are not being told? Because the chief is on it, the teacher is on it, the head teacher is on it, the village elder is there. There's something for everybody. Kitu kidogo. There's a gentleman, Senator Sakaja and I used to do a show. It's called Jimmy Gatho. When we were young, he used to have something called kuchil. Maybe these are the lessons. What all of you have spoken about. But Senator Kwamboka, when the women of this country are attacked by the men, you come out guns blazing. You'd spare no moment. I've not seen a huge press conference of Inua Mama, or what was the other one called? I don't know. of protecting our girls. Yes, can you embrace our daughters? Fight for our daughters. Because this is part and parcel of what you are doing in Embrace, Inua Mama, or whatever else that you have been doing in black or white. Please, thank you.
Senator Sakaja.
Madam Speaker, I thank the Senator Beatrice Kwamboka of the biggest delegation in the Senate, the delegation of Nairobi, for bringing this issue. Senator Kwamboka knows the extent to which we are really grappling with these issues in Nairobi. And other senators are aware how their counties look like. Madam Speaker, the first thing I must do is completely disagree with Senator Kangata. Purity or abstinence or, you know, our children behaving is not because of a lack of opportunity. It cannot be that we think the only way to protect our children is just to keep them busy, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for those, or rather, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations for sitting on that chair. I've never seen you there. And I'm glad on your inaugural maiden seat, as you're being taught to the computer, I am on the floor. I know you follow the Bible. The book of Deuteronomy 6:7 says, "And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children. Thou shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." That is what Senator Mutula is talking about. Mr. Speaker, Proverbs 22:6 also says, in fact, NIV, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they grow, they shall not depart from it." Another verse, another translation, English Standard Version, says, "Train up a child on the way he should go. Even when he is old, he shall not depart from it." Mr. Speaker, this problem in society, and I like what Senator Mutula said, it is really us as parents. It is just a moral decay, and now we are seeing what teachers have been able to do and have been filling a gap that parents have not been filling. The answer is not to throw him back to the teachers. It's for parents to wake up and to realize the role they play in their children's lives, Mr. Speaker. And I personally commit for my children, my sons and my daughter, to play my part. And I think every parent should be able to do that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, additionally, I want to say that the decision not to open schools is a well-considered decision. Mr. Speaker, as chair of COVID, this was what we recommended to the minister. And he said there's no education going on. The quality of a child in class 8 today is different from the quality of a child in class 8 last year. And we're putting an unfair burden, especially for those who cannot afford, internet or gadgets. Mr. Speaker, yourself, before you came to the seat, you said the issue of children having phones. We banned phones in schools, and today we're giving education through phones. Many are not accessing. Even those who are in private schools, as Senator Kangata was saying, I have seen the classes my kids have been going through. It really is just keeping them busy. When you open up schools, you've opened up the whole of the society and the economy. Transport, you will not test the teachers every day. The kids might not get sick, they'll be asymptomatic, but they'll bring it back to you, and we will perish. So, Mr. Speaker, I support, and this House passed the report of our committee actually proposing that education starts afresh in 2021, and that is what we support as a House officially. Mr. Speaker, finally, the issue of access to all this, bad content online, on phones, these pornography websites, needs to be curtailed in this country. Some people might say it's a cake, let them say that. But for us as parents, who cringe at the thought, there's a school, I will not mention the school, that they were having a Zoom class online. And in the middle of the class, some pornography popped up, and you can imagine children in grade 2, grade 3 screaming, not knowing what is going on. You would not want that to be your child who gets such content, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to curtail that content. As Senator Kajwanga said, he's an information scientist. In many countries, you will not access it at all. And for those who may want to access it because of their own moral, whatever, the privity, you pay a huge premium to be able to access that. But let us protect our children. Let us protect society. I'd like to inform the chair of Health Committee that we already raised this issue with CS Magoha as the head of committee. Of course, just like many of us, we doubt those numbers that were released, because also there is a huge push to introduce certain elements of this sex education in schools, and many NGOs are pushing such narratives. It would be a profound tragedy if anything close to that number is true, but either way, even one child is too much. And the CS is coming back to our committee on this and other issues. So I'll invite the Health Committee, even as they go into the depth of, the Education Committee, even as they go to the depth of this issue. The CS had already made a statement on it, and we doubt those numbers. Mr. Speaker, my constituents, as I finish, have come to me and told me there's a bill in this House that is similar to the kind of stories being brought up, the nuances about the urgency and the crisis that needs immediate sex education, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say on record, without preempting debate, that I will not support any such provisions that are going to introduce. Mr. Speaker, the Bible says, don't introduce something before its time. There's a way our parents spoke to us, even if it was vague and in parables and in poetry and in threats, that prevented us and made us do what Senator Kangata is saying, delay some of these things. The role remains with parents, not with teachers, to teach our children these things. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Sakaja. You are quite biblical, and it's very interesting, because you are the one who called me Mr. Speaker on the chair. You know what I mean by that. For the first time. So I'm very happy. This is my maiden time. Senator Naomi Shionga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations for sitting in that chair. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate Senator Kwamboka for coming up with this statement, especially during this time of COVID. Mr. Speaker, it is quite interesting that much more is coming with COVID, putting into consideration parents have been put on the task of taking care of their own children. However, Mr. Speaker, I want to state that it is the responsibility of parents to take care of their own children. When you take your child to school, it doesn't mean that your responsibility has ended. Responsibility starts with you, ends with you, and it is no longer a responsibility of a teacher who is coming in as a teacher with his functions to take care of your child. Mr. Speaker, much has been said, and looking at the churches, which were suspended until yesterday, that have been also a way of taking care of our children, especially with utmost biblical way of growing up your child. However, when you look at the church, it also just comes in with its moral support. I want to say today that I said one day here that people need to be scooped. And I will still repeat it, that it is not yet done when I'm still in this house. That these people who are perpetrators of these acts, their punishment is very, 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 it has a thin line. And I don't see it supporting the community today. These people need to be given heavy punishment, and I will go without any defense. Mr. Speaker, a matter of becoming a parent to these children, where they have sleepless nights, they have to arrange how to go for appointment of the doctor. It is a heavy duty for these young children.
Senator, kindly wind up.
Let me wind up. I'm just saying, like Senator Kangata has said, we should not run away from the responsibility of us being parents, and put the whole load to the teachers, but we need to take care of our own children as God gave us these children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support the statement, and I say, let it go to the right committee so that we help our children and do away with what the ministry is encouraging our children to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, as long as people are not scooped. Senator Farhia Ali Haji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I also wish to join Super Senator for congratulating you on that seat, because I think you deserve that and much more. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to thank you for giving me opportunity to read my statement. In terms of, Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare concerning the alleged stall payment of sitting allowance for members of Wajir County Land Tribunal Board. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should explain why Wajir County Land Tribunal Board has not been paid its sitting allowance for the last 23 months, despite having been budgeted for by the county. Outline the measure that will be put in place to ensure that the board is fully paid its dues, and noting that their term comes to the end of June, and explain measures that will be put in place to ensure that the county government of Wajir halts the end of their contract until the board has been paid its sitting allowance. And Mr. Speaker, this is a hard time where people are facing financial crisis because of the COVID-19. To have some, board members' allowance not being paid for 23 months, that is almost like 2 years, Mr. Speaker, is a tragedy. And Mr. Speaker, I want the committee, once you refer, to bring this matter expeditiously, because the contract of the board is coming to an end, and if it does, it has already come to an end actually. And if they are sent home, then they don't have any other authority to claim that money back, and they will be inconvenienced and being put into a financial strain. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Sakaja, Arthur Johnson.
Yeah. No, Mr. Speaker, I just want to commit because the Deputy Majority Whip had brought this to my attention, and I see she's requesting that it come from a committee. If you direct so, I will do a level best, as is the normal practice, to give a response. There are many counties that think such payments that are due are mere suggestions, and we'll be able to give a response. Senator Faria, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Musuruve, Enima.
Honorable Chair, for giving me this opportunity. And allow me also to congratulate you for this position, Senator Mwaura. As someone with a disability sitting on that chair, it means a lot for persons with disabilities in this country. Now, Honorable Speaker, I want to congratulate Senator Faria for coming up with this statement. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, this is an issue not only for Wajir, but you'll find that there are many other boards where members are not really paid. And I want to say that when someone is appointed to a board, people are appointed because of the trust that is vested in them. And when they're in a board, they are also allotted work to do. They have duties to do. So they spend a lot of time and work diligently. And it is only fair that for work that is done, it should be paid. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that even when people attend such committees, you'll find that someone has used his own money, his own resources, his own airtime, his own travel monies, and these monies are meant for his family. So there is need for board members to be paid their sitting allowance, and not only sitting allowance, Honorable Speaker, because there's some also who travel from far, and they also sleep in hotels as they wait for that time to come for them to attend the boards. So there's need for a fair hearing for all committee members, and in fact, Honorable Speaker, there is need to do an analysis for all boards in this country to see whether the board members are treated fairly, or maybe they're just treated like they're not doing any good work. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that when Kenyans commit themselves, their time, their energy to working in this nation, let that energy be treated positively so that they actually get compensation for the energy that they have vested in this country. So I support this statement. It should go to the right committee, and this committee should also look into other counties to see whether board members are treated as they should be treated. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. I support this statement.
Thank you, Senator Musuruve, and I must commend you because you almost contribute in each and every debate or matter on the floor of the House. That is good representation of persons with disabilities. Now, I wish to move to the next statement, but before that, that statement stands committed to the Committee on Labor and Social Welfare, led by Senator Sakaja Arthur Johnson. Senator, one of the young senators, Samson Cherargei, you have the floor.
Thank you.
I'm told you are also currently a disabled person.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I am almost recovered. I'm finishing the procedure, but I thank all of you for the support. Mr. Speaker, allow me from the onset to congratulate you and wish you well. We are proud of you as young people of this country. We look to brighter things for you, and I can see Kiambu is beckoning come 2022. So, Mr. Speaker, request for statement on the killing of 3 residents of Lesos, Nandi Hills constituency, Nandi County by police officers last week. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations regarding the killings of Mr. Lazarus Tirop, Cornelius Kipkogei, and Timothy Kipiego, residents of Lesos in Nandi Hills constituency, Nandi County, by police officers, and a dozen who were injured last week. In the statement 1, the committee should state the reasons that led to the shooting and killing of 3 residents of Lesos, Nandi Hills constituency by police officers who are supposed to maintain law and order in the area. Second, indicate whether it is aware that the incident has sparked of protests in Lesos Center and ignited acrimony, fear, and mistrust between the residents of Nandi County and the officers of National Police Service Commission. And it is important the House to note that the house of the OCS in charge of that police station was burned down by the anger. Whether the policy on community policing is still in operation, and if so, explain why the police officers have failed to embrace it, thus causing serious disharmony between police officers and the community in Lesos. Fourth, state what actions the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government and National Police Service have taken, if any, against the police officers responsible for the killings, and have failed the full list of officers who are transferred from the area as pronounced by Deputy Inspector General of Police, who, Mr. Speaker, visited the site last week. Fifth, outline the measures, if any, that the Ministry of Interior and National Coordination of National Government has put in place to ensure that justice is served to the 3 families and other persons that were injured by police officers in Lesos, with the aim of ensuring that they are fully compensated by the government. Mr. Speaker, just a quick comment is that allegedly Mr. Tirop, the first to be killed by the rock police officer, was just shot because he could not wear a mask. The question is, how many Kenyans can afford 50 shillings, 100 shillings to be able to buy a mask wear in public? Mr. Speaker, you saw the other day in Rioma in Kisii County, a police station was burned down because of just a business person who was killed for not wearing a mask. Mr. Speaker, it is so sad, even as we appeal to the residents of Nandi, and specifically Lesos, to maintain law and order, we must address this issue of extrajudicial killings by rogue police officers within the service. And I think the Senator for Nairobi, Senator Sakaja, has been on this issue for very long. And I'm happy the other day there is a police officer who is in custody for shooting a young boy who was playing on a balcony here in Nairobi. And we want to see the same police officers being charged, Mr. Speaker. I am made aware that one police officer is now before court of law, but there are others who shot the other two until they died, Mr. Speaker. There are others who are in hospital. Mr. Speaker, we must come up with a law that will ensure there is compensation to the family, to those families who lost their loved one. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, is that the medical bills that are being incurred by the injured, those injured. Mr. Speaker, why would a bullet that is bought by the same 192 taxpayers are being used to kill them? Where will the police get the same tax if they have killed people who are paying tax to buy the same bullet? And they're using the same bullet to kill the people, Mr. Speaker. So and in as much as there is a lot of animosity, the Ministry of Interior, the Inspector General of Police, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, Mr. Speaker, this curfew and lockdown, there are many Kenyans who are being killed by rogue police officers. We are not saying all police are bad. We saw the march in the US the other day where they are saying Black Lives Matter. Also in this case, we are saying Kenyan Lives Matter. What we saw today during Saba commemoration is one way. I don't know, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether police pride themselves by how many people you arrest and you file returns saying, I have arrested so much, many and many. I don't know whether there is a reward for killing innocent Kenyans, whether there is a reward for arresting innocent protesters, including Frank Charger, and among others who are arrested today here in Kibra, and many others across the city. Mr. Speaker, I have seen also the activist Mwangi has also been arrested for calling upon the release of many people who have been arrested. So I want to concur with Senator Sakaja. We thought these extrajudicial killings are only found in Northeastern and maybe here in Nairobi. It has come even to our villages and we are no longer safe. That is why I'm speaking now for all of us who are in the village that are facing the same imminent threat of extrajudicial killings by rogue police officers. And yet life, I heard as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I heard Senator Sakaja expressing reservations of a bill that is supposed to come to the floor. We said all lives in Kenya matter and life begins as conception. Why should we protect that child from not being aborted, being taken care of until they are old enough, and then the rogue police come and kill them? Then what are we doing? I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I beg a quick and expeditious response to this statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. You called me madam twice, but I looked the other time. Now, Senator, and actually I take note that today is Saba, and this is the day we commemorate, you know, the struggles that have made some of us young people, people with disabilities, women, to be in this august house. It's really, really great. And also it's the first time a person with disability is sitting in the speaker's chair. This is also very commendable because it's meaning that we are making progress. We now have women chairpersons of committees, and I believe that even in future, we will keep on pushing until we make it. In that same regard, I call Senator Dr. Christopher Lagat, the distinguished senator for Bomet, to make his submissions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Congratulations for sitting there today. It is an achievement. I think that it is a reward for your great effort that you've been engaging yourself in this house. They normally say that positions makes people disciplined. You can see Kangata is around here. Who could imagine on earth?
Order, Senator Lagat, order. Are you trying to allude to the chemistry I'm seeing of Senator Kangata and Senator Millicent Omanga, despite social distancing rules?
Not really allow me to continue. I was just saying, I didn't know that even he could hear, but I have realized that he is concentrating. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support this statement by Senator Cherargei about the police brutality. I want to say that in the history of this country since independence, police brutality in this country has reached its zenith, the highest point, and it's a great shame. I want to say that the CS Interior should actually take strict measures to restrain the police in this particular country by actually for brutalizing the citizens of this nation. In fact, this reminds me, Mr. Speaker, of a certain story that was written by Grace Okoth in 1968. There was a major character by the name Tekayo, who instead he was supposed to be the agent of security of the society, but he turned himself to become a cannibal and became the highest in security, which became an irony because he was supposed to be the security agent, but he turned to become insecurity agent in itself. And I want to say, without fear, that we are ashamed of the police service in this country today, in the history. They have turned to become insecurity forces. Instead of actually safeguarding our society, in fact, they are the most feared people in this country. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that you could even see the other time, the president was apologizing when the police killed a young boy, Cherargei was saying, by the name Yasin, I think Moyo. Yasin Moyo. It was a great shame. How long will the president keep on apologizing over this particular brutality of the police force in this police service in this country? It's a shame to the minister, to the CS Interior. It's a shame to the IG, Inspector General of Police. It's a great shame. And I want to say we condemn the police brutality in our country with the strongest terms possible. And we want to see these people being given priority when they get to the court. We want to hear the judge pronouncing sentence with immediate effect of these particular perpetrators, Mr. Speaker. I think the law enforcement is also lenient on them. They are lenient. We want to see the police being jailed for 9 years. We want to see them being jailed for 10 years so that the rest may learn a lesson, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, it is a great shame. I was seeing with a lot of sympathy when the president was apologizing. We apologize. How long will the president keep on apologizing? So I want to conclude by saying, Mr. Speaker, the police have turned to become home cards, and soon we want to demand to know the new colonial master whom these police are serving senselessly in this country. It's a shame. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Langat. Senator. Senator Naomi Shionga. Naomi Wakojilo, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I also take this opportunity to congratulate you.
What is out of order, Senator Sakaja? Senator Naomi, you are both Naomis, you'll both get the opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, I just seek your indulgence. If you look at the time, it's now past 5:30. We're still on statements. We have substantive business. Not that statements are not substantive, but we have reports and the bills that we thought we'd still be able to. So I just want to urge if you can maybe limit either the number or length of comments to this and the next statement, Mr. Speaker.
I think, members, let's limit to, because here I have Senator Inima Musuruve and Senator Naomi Shionga, 1 minute each so that we move to the next statement. Senator Naomi.
As I also take this opportunity to congratulate you, it's good seeing you there because you are very hardworking, young and talented senator. We thank God for giving you that opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the issue of police brutality in our country, I think in this house, in this honorable, in this august house, we have discussed this and debated this severally. And it is unfortunate that we keep on talking about this and there is no action that is taken. Mr. Speaker, we sympathize with the people who lost their lives in Nandi and the many others who keep on losing their lives even today or even the day after. And even in our counties, many of our people have lost their lives. I don't know when Kenyans will find safety in the hands of police. When you go to the cells, women and young girls are raped there. When you drive on our roads, they are the people who promote corruption. I don't know what we can do in order to stem these people. Maybe they have they are going through depressions that needs our attention. And I think it is better.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator Naomi Shionga.
Mike. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on the statement. Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate that every week we talk about extrajudicial killing by the police. I just want to state in this House that, Mr. Speaker, when the committee takes up this matter, it is good for the committee to investigate the issue about the training. Let us look at the training, if at all these police officers are trained in a way that they are able to take care of life, protect life, or kill or destroy life. Mr. Speaker, many of the police officers who are caught into these particular issues, really, when they are interrogated, the problems or the issues are not sorted to the end. Hence leading to other police officers imagining that there is no equitable punishment that can go along when they commit such a crimes. It is the highest time that the committee needs to recall or to call the police.
One more second, please.
Thank you. They recall the Inspector General and the police fraternity as a whole, so that they explain why this is this particular practice is on the rise, other than being on the decrease. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again I congratulate you.
Thank you very much, and also congratulations for being the first woman chair, the second woman chair of the National Cohesion Committee. Senator Musuruva Inima, 1 minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I want to support Senator Cherukei for coming up with this important statement. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, on the floor of this House, that when police officers are given guns, they're not given the power to kill. They're given the power to protect Kenyans. But it is unfortunate that sometimes they misuse, the issue of having guns and imagining that anytime they're angry, they shoot. And I want to say that sometimes they work because of displaced aggression. Like the case that Senator Cherukei has brought on the floor of this House. It was an unwarranted shooting. Police officers they were not even supposed to shoot someone simply because somebody doesn't have a mask. So it is unfortunate that that situation took place in Lesotho, and I want to condole with the family of these 3 people who lost their lives, and I want to say honestly that there is need for compensation of these 3 families because they've lost a guardian, they've lost parents, they've lost caretakers, so you'll find that children may not even go to school because they do not have parents to pay fees for them. The government needs to pay fees for the children who have been left orphans as a result of this incident. And the Committee of Justice should ensure that the police who did this are brought to book. They should not go scot-free at all. Many times issues of police harassing Kenyans come to the floor of this House, but we do not see how police are actually punished in a way that they will act as examples to others. We want to have confidence in our police, but they should know that they have a duty to protect Kenyans, not to kill.
Thank you very much, Senator. The next statement is to Senator Sakaja and Senator Dr. Lagat, but we will not have debate, just be on standby. But that statement is committed to the relevant committee, that is Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations. Senator Sakaja, Arthur Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to quickly request for a statement. It is urgent. Pursuant to Standing Order 48.1, I rise to seek a statement from the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation, on the progress made on construction of various markets across Nairobi City County and the criteria to be used in allocation of the markets once completed. The national government, together with the World Bank and African Development Bank, AFDB, have funded the ongoing construction of 7 key modern markets that will accommodate a total of 9,000 traders. These markets include the new Wakulima Market on Kangundo Road, Westlands Market, Quarry Road Market in Gikomba, Moriro Market, Karandini Market, City Park Market, and Karen Market. Mr. Speaker, and the record will show that in the course of the last 2 years, we have really been following this up on the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker. These markets intend to offer traders ample space away from the streets and give them a dignified environment to carry out their businesses. However, there have been numerous cases of fraud whereby unscrupulous individuals and brokers have been fleecing innocent Kenyans, alleging they could allocate them stalls and space in the new markets Senator Kwamboka and Senator Umanga will tell you, some are even paying up to 300,000 shillings fraudulently to get space. Mr. Speaker, I would like to request that the chairperson in his response address the following. 1, give a comprehensive status report on the progress made on the construction of each of the above markets and the stipulated timelines for their completion. 2, to give in detail the criteria that will be used in the allocation of the markets to traders, the terms of the allocation, and the authenticated list of all traders that were previously displaced and were to be given priority during the allocation. Many of these were displaced during construction of various roads, Outer Ring Road, Westlands, etc. The expected timeline for occupation of each of the markets, as well as safeguards put in place to prevent fraud and unfair or skewed allocations to this market. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very much. The statement stands committed to the relevant Committee on Roads and Transport. Senator Dr. Lagat. Sorry, Senator Cherargei, because of time, it's just to read the statement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise in pursuant to the Standing Order 48.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the cruel treatment of Kenyans working in the state of Qatar. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should explain the circumstances that led to the torture of Ms. Chepkemoi Krinyet from Bomet County working in Qatar to the extent of losing 2 teeth last week and confiscation of her passport. State the measures that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is putting in place, if any, to ensure that Ms. Krinyet and all other Kenyans victims of such cruel acts get justice in that country. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, state the measures the government has put in place to regulate the agencies offering job opportunities abroad and to ensure the general welfare of Kenyans working in those countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The statement stands committed to the relevant Committee of National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. Now, I think before I call upon the Leader of Majority to make his statement, I think... Okay, Senator Lagat.
Because this particular girl is suffering so much, I think that the family took her to hospital in Qatar, and immediately she came out of the hospital, she was told that that family has stood with her at a cost of 750,000, and earning is only 15,000 per month. It means that she will stay there and she's still sick for a long time. So I've requested, Mr. Speaker, that you state the time limit to enable these particular Kenyans suffering in those countries at least to be assisted.
Thank you, Senator Lagat. I think we give it 2 weeks. 2 weeks so that we also don't give 1 week, which is impracticable. But it is a major concern. We are receiving a lot of distress calls, and some of them are bordering on racism, actually. So 2 weeks, the relevant committee, I think that's Senator Yusuf Haji or the deputy, to take up the matter. Now, but generally, I think we as senators, we need to find ways in which we actually get our statements implemented so that we are not just a house of suggestion. I think that is something, we had a problem in the 11th Parliament, Senator Sakaja, you can remember, Senator Irongo Kangata, you can remember, about implementation, so that we sanction state officers and public officers who do not adhere to the resolutions of Parliament. Because that is another way of ensuring Parliament is seen to be, responsive to the critical needs of Wanjiku. Otherwise, the parliamentary design can as well be insular to people's needs. You come here, you make all the statements because you love your people, but then that is the end of it. And we don't just do it for the public gallery. The Leader of Majority, Chief Whip, Senator Kangata.
Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 52, Sabbatical 1, I hereby present to the Senate the business of the House for Tuesday, 14th July 2020. On Tuesday, 14th July 2020, the Senate Business Committee will meet to schedule the business of the Senate. On that day, 14th July 2020, the Senate will consider bills scheduled for second reading, and those are the committee of the whole stages. The Senate will also continue with consideration of business that will not be concluded in today's order paper, including motions, petitions, and statements. Mr. Speaker, sir, a total of 18 bills are due for second reading, and another 20 bills are at the committee of the whole stage. The Senate Business Committee will prioritize these bills accordingly. I urge respective standing committees to expeditiously conclude consideration of these bills and table reports pursuant to standing orders. I also urge respective movers of the bills and movers of amendments to be in the House whenever the bills are scheduled to facilitate speedy consideration and smooth transition to the next stage. Mr. Speaker, sir, critical business still remains relating to financial matters, namely the third basis for revenue allocation among county governments and the county allocation of revenue bill. I urge the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget to expedite consideration of the business and table reports to the Senate pursuant to relevant standing orders. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, despite the efforts made by the government to curb the spread of COVID-19 pandemic, the situation in the country continues to persist, with increasing numbers of infections being reported. For this reason, I wish to urge all honorable senators to continue adhering to the guidelines issued by the Honorable Speaker in the conduct of business, both in the plenary and in committees, and also the protocols issued by the Ministry of Health to curb the spread of the pandemic. Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you, and I hereby lay the statement on the table of the House.
Thank you very much, Chief Whip de facto. Next order.
Order number 8, the Investment Promotion Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 8 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Investment Promotion Act and for connected purposes.
Next order. Thank you. I think because of the prevailing situation in the House, order number 9 is deferred until such a time that it can be prosecuted. Next order.
Order number 10, motion, adoption of the 7th progress report of the Ad hoc Committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya.
Mover.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move the motion in an amended form.
Kindly proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the 7th and 8th progress reports of the Ad hoc Committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, the 16th of June, 2020, and on Tuesday, the 7th of July, which is today, 2020, respectively. Mr. Speaker, this Ad hoc Committee on COVID-19 situation was established on the 31st of March 2020 with the mandate to oversight actions and measures taken by the national and county governments in addressing the spread and effects of COVID-19 in this country. Mr. Speaker, you gave us a wide mandate as a House that goes from the areas of health testing, medical equipment, isolation centers, ICU facilities, measures to ensure supply of food and other essential commodities like water, measures to enable learners in educational institutions to continue with their studies, measures to ensure protection, safety, and well-being of healthcare and other frontline workers, enhancement of capacity and flexible deployment of healthcare staff, financial assistance to vulnerable groups and persons, protection of residential and commercial tenants, stimulus package for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, measures to protect employees from retrenchment and job losses, and uniform policies and procedures aimed at slowing and eventually stopping the spread of the coronavirus. Mr. Speaker, this 8th progress report, and I think it is important for the House to note that the 8th progress report of the ADO Committee on the COVID-19 situation comes at the halfway point of the committee's 6-month mandate. Mr. Speaker, having been set up by the Senate on the 31st of March, we've been in existence for now 3 months, and we're expected to submit our final report to the Senate by 30th September 2020. I believe we shall not have to seek for any extension because we'll have done our work, and departmental committees which will be able to then pick up from there. Mr. Speaker, I, together with my members, don't believe that ADO committees should exist in perpetuity, but should be able at a time like this to take up their work and then hand over to substantive committees which are well mandated in these areas. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a milestone because in the last 3 months, we've held a total of 71 sittings, of which 66 have been virtually held, and 5 have been physical sittings. Mr. Speaker, as you're saying today is historic, but I also want to give you some little history, that this committee is the first committee in the history of the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya to hold virtual sittings, following the directive of the Speaker held on 30th March. And many committees now of both houses and even county assemblies are holding virtual sittings, so we set the pace. Mr. Speaker, in this time as well, we've met all key stakeholders that were identified at the initial stage, and now we are on the second phase of engagement with stakeholders. These are cabinet secretaries, the Council of Governors, County Assemblies Forum, constitutional commissions and independent offices. We've met various departments and agencies of the national government, frontline healthcare workers and their union representatives. We've met the private sector, employers associations, trade unions, civil society, business owners representing manufacturers, as well as micro and small medium enterprises. We've met experts in various thematic areas. Kenyans from across the world have come and logged in. Those in public finance and budgeting, women, youth groups, amongst others, Mr. Speaker. We've also invited written submissions from members of the public. On the 5 thematic areas, Mr. Speaker, you know we put our work into thematic areas and we look at each of those thematic areas. Healthcare, the finance and economic issues, access to food and water, the issues of social order, public justice, and of course cross-cutting issues. And we've met and considered and received more than 165 submissions so far from the public. And yet again, I want to thank Kenyans for coming to the Senate to raise their issues and their concerns, and also for the feedback, because we've made a lot of milestones and we've made a lot of progress in many of the areas we've interacted with government. They've made changes, they've taken our ideas in many of these cases. Mr. Speaker, during the second phase of this engagement, the committee continues to track measures proposed and under implementation by the national and county governments in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Notably, during this phase, Mr. Speaker, we plan to shift from purely virtual engagements with stakeholders to actual site visits and verification of information submitted to the committee. This is to ensure that the national and county governments are held accountable in implementation of the respective COVID-19 interventions. Mr. Speaker, it's very easy to get reports that paint a colorful picture, but when you go to the ground, as they say in Swahili, vitu ni different. And that is why this committee has done county visits. Mr. Speaker, we're visiting our law courts, we're visiting different areas to see whether what we're getting as written submissions actually reflect on what is actually being implemented on the ground. Mr. Speaker, another milestone is that we published the Pandemic Response and Management Bill Senate Bill number 6 of 2020, which completed its legislative process in the Senate on Tuesday, the 30th of June, and was referred to the National Assembly for its concurrence. Mr. Speaker, during consideration of this bill, we received an additional, on top of the 164 submissions, an additional 63 submissions from diverse stakeholders and held virtual engagements with key actors, including the Federation of Kenya Employers and the Law Society of Kenya. The comments received from all Kenyans and institutions, public and private, greatly enriched the content of the bill, with the committee proposing various amendments that were incorporated at the committee stage. And I want to thank senators, colleagues who gave submissions, and all who voted, because this bill was unanimously passed on the 30th of June. The bill is now at the National Assembly. I'd like to urge our colleagues from the National Assembly that this bill indeed is important, not just for coronavirus, but for posterity, because it's dealing with any pandemic that might happen in this country, that they may expedite it, so that they don't pass it when the pandemic is over. This is the time we need it to cushion the vulnerable, to create a framework through which national and county governments can be able to work together at the time of a pandemic, to create the avenues necessary for resourcing and coordination, even at just the national level with different ministries, and to strengthen and embed the role of oversight by national and county governments and assemblies, by legislative bodies during the time of a pandemic. Mr. Speaker, we've considered a total of 8 senators' requests for statements under Standing Order 47.1 and 48.1 of the Senate Standing Orders, and we've reported back to the Senate on each of these statements, Mr. Speaker. We still have other statements that we are working on, including some that have been raised today. Mr. Speaker, we've undertaken fact-finding visits to 2 counties, Meru County and Isiolo County, where we have evaluated the level of preparedness and response. These visits enable us to interact firsthand with the respective COVID-19 emergency response committees in the 2 counties. We've engaged with the members of the county assemblies of Isiolo and Meru, particularly the health committees of both counties, and we thank them. We met frontline health workers, healthcare workers. We listened to their grievances and feedback, and we proposed certain things that could be dealt with there in the counties, and I'm glad to note that the county is actually looking at those issues. We engaged community leaders, civil society representatives, whistleblowers, particularly on ensuring transparency and accountability in implementation of COVID-19 interventions at the county level. And we visited COVID-19 treatment and isolation facilities in both counties, Mr. Speaker. As mentioned earlier, we undertake as a committee to take further visits in the coming weeks to selected counties, especially in the month of August. In July, we will visit counties that are around Nairobi County, that is Kajiado, Machakos, Kiambu, Murang'a. And then we'll be able to, and of course, the challenges in the new financial year, then we'll be able to venture out to other counties. This is not just to get first and practical accounts of what's happening on the ground, but also to document the interventions undertaken and their impact, which will help the country even in dealing with future pandemics, epidemics, or disasters. Mr. Speaker, again, we insist, these visits are important. Even if it means giving this role to the senators of those counties and giving them a reporting framework, it is important at this point, Mr. Speaker, for oversight and transparency. It will save us more money than what people are saying we want to use money to go there. This is our role, it's our mandate. Mr. Speaker, if you are saving counties hundreds of millions by visiting, and people are saying, oh, you just want, we're not interested in sitting allowances, Mr. Speaker, or 5,000 shillings. We can save our counties billions by making sure that governors don't just send us reports or put them on their websites which are false. We want to see the real state of things on the ground, and so we'll continue unapologetically, but of course following the government directives, Mr. Speaker. We've considered and tabled a total of 8 progress reports, in addition to 2 statements by the chairperson, under Standing Order 51.1, and we've covered in detail the engagements with stakeholders, our observations and recommendations. Mr. Speaker, these reports have been debated and adopted by the Senate, and the committee is following up with the national and county governments to ensure implementation of the Senate resolutions thereon. The reports tabled so far, Mr. Speaker, have covered the first 3 thematic areas extensively. We have covered health, we have covered economic and finance issues, social public order and human rights, respectively. Mr. Speaker, this 8th report covers the 2 remaining thematic areas, which is access to food, water and other basic commodities, and support services and cross-cutting issues. Mr. Speaker, even though we've covered those areas previously, it doesn't mean that we have now closed those areas. We are still reviewing what we had agreed on, what is on the implementation matrix. In the next few days, we are meeting again with the National Emergency Response Team, led by CS Mutai Kagwe, CS Matiang'i, and CS Magoha. Because, Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 is a rapidly evolving pandemic. And many things that we had agreed upon a month ago or 2 months ago have changed. And so we need to keep playing that continuous oversight role even as the situation keeps changing and evolving, and not just in Kenya, globally as well. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the thematic area 4 on access to food and water and other essential commodities, we deliberated on, extensively on these issues relating to continuous supply of food and other essential commodities, to control plant and livestock disease, because that's an issue that many people have ignored so far, to ensure continuity in food production and access to water and other essential commodities. And so we've been able to meet the Ministry of Agriculture with the CS, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives. We've met water service providers, Association WASPA, and we've met the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. And the committee further considered written submissions from the CS for water, sanitation and irrigation. And I'd like to report that we're meeting the CS tomorrow again, despite having sent a submission tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. And I'd like to invite any senator interested, as well as other diverse stakeholders who presented written submissions to the committee. Mr. Speaker, based on our analysis of the written memoranda received from the public and on submissions made by the key stakeholders, we've made the following preliminary observations and recommendations, which are detailed at Chapter 4 of the report. I hope senators can be able to access Chapter 4 of the report, because I don't want to exhaust my time. I have, I think, 45 minutes left. But I would also like maybe senators who are here to also contribute. So I will not go to the specifics. But let me highlight the following. One, Mr. Speaker, we commend as a committee, we commend early measures taken by national and county governments to ensure the continued production and distribution of food commodities across the country. Amongst this, Mr. Speaker, maybe many senators are not aware, was the creation of the Food Security War Room at the Ministry of Agriculture that is continuously monitoring farm input supply and consolidating emerging issues for appropriate action by concerned institutions and agencies. These measures have ensured that food prices, Mr. Speaker, have remained relatively stable. Of course, there have been some shifts, but if you compare us with a lot of our neighbors, our food prices have remained considerably, relatively stable, despite the interruption of inter-county supply chains for some essential commodities. Mr. Speaker, among the risks that have been identified to sustain food production and distribution